Chapter 1469. That was what she said, but when Ryoko saw Ajwa rise to the challenge she couldn't help but smile. She suddenly felt as if her heart had been violently twitched by something. The man in front of him was the publicly acknowledged liar of the Jianghu family. Cunning, treacherous, dirty, old liar. Ever since Kyuko Ryoko had learned of Ajwa's name 6 years ago, these words had practically become the Kyuko family's stereotype of him. She was the eldest daughter of the Jianghu family, and had come to Wuxia Nation to redeem her family's glory and expand their market. Only the members of the Jianghu family could understand this kind of hatred for Ajwa, the desire to kill him as soon as possible. But now the young girl realized that things didn't seem to be as she had imagined. As one of the future heirs of the Q family, Q Ryoko naturally knew how powerful the brush fairy was. That was a ghost formed from powerful resentment, whose strength was infinitely close to that of a loose immortal. Back then the Jianghu family had paid a huge price to capture him, but now he had been killed by Ajwa with one stroke of his sword. Could it really be Ajwa who had killed the Demon King 6 years ago? However, his true state was not just at the Golden Core realm. At this time Ryoko Kwamiya had mixed feelings. She suddenly felt that this man who had clearly been labeled by the Jianghu family, had suddenly become mysterious. But now was not the time to talk about this. Ajwa was just an external problem for the Jianghu family. Ryoko Kamiya had come to Wuxia Nation this time to solve an external problem. In the end, not only was the external problem not solved, but the internal problem was also not solved. It even led to the internal problems of the Jianghu family. Instead, it was Ajwa who laughed at it. At that moment, Ajwa had already caught the other 2 accomplices of the leader. Their faces were deathly pale. Although they weren't injured, the yin qi had entered their bodies, causing them to tremble all over. They originally wanted to seize the opportunity to escape, but in the end they couldn't even walk. You'd better behave yourselves. Ajwa smiled at the 3 of them. You've seen my strength. Catching you is as easy as flipping my hand. Besides, this is Wuxia Nation, not Sun Island. Are you really Ajwa? On the ground, the man with the black ear studs gasped for breath. Because Ajwa had acted in time, his life had been saved. If the pill hadn't entered his body in time, the brush fairy would have sucked his life force dry. I am Ajwa. He didn't deny his identity. Now that things had come to this, there was no need to keep them in suspense. He laid his cards on the table. Let's save the unnecessary words for later. Now you need to answer classmate Kamiya's questions. Staring at the 3 people, Ajwa gave the interrogation to Kamiya Ryoko. Vigilance and vigilance remained in his eyes. Once these people tried to attack the girl, he would not hesitate to draw his sword. However, based on the current situation, stubbornly resisting was only a small possibility for these 3 people. Ryoko Kwamiya walked over and saw that the other 2 were not injured, but their faces were deathly pale. There was a trace of doubt in his heart. When the brush fairy appeared, they were clearly in the same environment. But why didn't she feel any discomfort? Could it be Ajwa? Ryoko Kamiya was not a fool. She thought of the only possibility, and her cheeks started to heat up again. So as she walked over, she took off her heavy black cloak, intending to cool herself down. The white off-the-shoulder short-sleeved shirt and super short jeans showed off Ryoko's good figure in one glance. Because the cloak was airtight, the girl's short-sleeved shirt was slightly soaked in sweat, and her snow-white bra strap was vaguely visible. Ajwa's eyes went wide as he thought that apart from her Chinibu dark style, this girl actually had this side to her. Perhaps sensing Ajwa's gaze on her, Ryoko hurriedly covered herself and glared at him. Ajwa smiled bitterly and hurriedly took off his suit jacket to put it on the girl. His suit jacket had always been very thin, so it was perfect for her. Who wants to wear your things? The girl's temper still hadn't changed. She said no, but her body was very honest. Ajwa felt that he was getting used to it. She tightened her suit jacket, then stared at the 3 people in front of her. These 3 people could be considered tactful. After the leader recovered his strength, he also got up, and the 3 of them knelt in a neat row in front of Ryoko. First of all, names. Ryoko's voice returned to its icy tone. My name is Masahide Inoue, they call me Brother Wei. The man with the black ear stud said, the 2 on the side are my little brothers, but they actually don't work for the Ryoko family. It's just that I usually call them out when I'm doing things. I also help them get their tattoos. The one on the left is codenamed Maka. The one on the right is called Chives. Ajwa, so you're collectively known as the Aphrodisiac Trio? Don't interrupt. Ryoko Kamiya glanced at Ajwa then looked down at them. I'll ask you one more time, which side are you on? Young miss, you know we can't say. Masahide Inoue's expression was bitter. Since I'm from the Ryoko family, I must have been cursed by a ghost. So young miss, you can try to guess. At least you know what's good for you. Ryoko nodded. She believed what Masahide Inoue said. If she betrayed her master like this, it would indeed be risky. But it would be fine as long as she didn't say or write down the names. The safest way was to make a guess. But it actually wasn't that difficult to deduce. In the Ryoko family, how many people would have the guts to directly lay a hand on her, the eldest daughter? Since these 3 people didn't belong to her second younger brother Hideshi Ryoko, then the only one left was, 6th madam, said Ryoko. Masahide Inoue didn't dare speak and just nodded. With a definite answer, Ryoko instantly felt a lot more at ease. Don't worry, it doesn't matter if you don't have the guts to say more now. I'll help you remove the curse when we get back. But in exchange you have to tell me everything you know. And from today onwards you have to remember that the 3 of you are already dead, understand? Understood, young miss. Tears welled up in Masahide Inoue's eyes. He had never thought that young miss would actually let bygones be bygones and treat them with kindness. 6th madam, is she the one your father married last year? Ajwa couldn't help asking at that moment. Yes. Ryoko nodded. She's my father's youngest wife so far. She's also pregnant and supposedly it's a boy. I see. Ajwa instantly understood. It seems that this 6th madam is quite ambitious. I've long suspected that she came in with a purpose, and I have some evidence. Evidence? Could it be that she's not pregnant at all, or that the child in her actually isn't your father's? How do you know? When Ryoko and the 3 people on the ground heard this, their eyes widened in shock. Ajwa shrugged. Isn't that what they always do in house fighting dramas? Ryoko snorted. Only you would know. Actually, I was just testing you to see if you were that smart. Looking at the couple who seemed to be flirting in front of him, Masahide Inoue hesitated to speak. Young miss, I actually have a question but I don't know if I should ask it. Ryoko, speak. Masahide Inoue, your relationship with Mr. Joie is? The next second the 2 of them spoke at the same time. Ryoko, he's my senior. Ajwa, she's my girlfriend. Ryoko instantly blushed and glared at Ajwa. Who's your girlfriend? Shameless. Chapter 1470. I understand. Masahide Inoue nodded solemnly. Everyone knew that eldest Miss Ryoko was famous for being at Sundara. If she denied it, that would mean, no. You don't understand. Ryoko stared at Masahide Inoue. I promise to let you go, but remember, don't make me angry. Otherwise the consequences will be very serious, understand? Yes, I understand. Brother Wei nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. For him, there was no need for an explanation now, because the situation was already very clear. Miss Kuya Ryoko was obviously anxious. If it wasn't for the fact that there was someone else behind her, why would she be in such a hurry to explain? If it had been a few days ago, there wouldn't have been a second possibility for Ryoko to have blushed. That was 100% because she hated Oljua the moment she heard the name, Ajwa. But the girl's flushed face indeed had another meaning. Because Ajwa wasn't quite what she had imagined. Not only was he not a liar, he was actually a capable man. There was no way he could have cultivated to this level in just 6 years. Thus, Ryoko deduced that Ajwa was definitely faking his golden core stage, and that his real strength was definitely more than that. But so far, Ryoko had yet to find out why Ajwa had hidden his realm. Perhaps he had come with the intention of keeping a low profile from the very beginning, and had just been discovered by accident? And the boy that the Day Wanderer ghost had mentioned was most likely a witness at the scene. So, from the very beginning, had the entire Jiogong family misunderstood Ajwa? If his speculation was correct, then who was the boy that the Day Wanderer ghost had seen? It looks like I still have to find that dead fish eye. Ryoko pondered at that moment. Her train of thought was very clear, and she had no intention of giving up on looking for Wang Ling. Boys and girls at this age were always exceptionally curious. After this sudden incident, Ryoko Kumiya began to be wary of the Kumiya family disciples she claimed to have carefully selected from Sun Island to help her in her work. There was definitely a mole in the villa, but she still couldn't confirm who it was. Although that private doctor Kimura Daiwa was a suspect, the girl didn't have any concrete evidence at the moment. So, what are you going to do next? Ajwa looked at the girl with an indescribable love in his eyes. Think of a way to settle the 3 of them down nearby. I will send someone to watch and protect them, Ryoko Kumiya said. Don't tell me they just happened to send a mole? Ajwa smiled. Don't worry, this time it's my trusted aide. You should have met him in school before. Oh, I remember. You mean your personal female bodyguard? Her name is Junko. She has been with me since I was a child. There won't be any problems. Understood. Folding his arms, he pondered for a bit, and suddenly realized that he had found an opportunity to get close to the girl. But have you thought about it? If you send her out, what will you do? This question caused the young girl to sink into silence. What he said actually made a lot of sense. So far, Komiya Ryoko still did not know the reason for the riot of the copy of the Ghost Register. What if there was another problem in the future when there was no one around? She would probably die a horrible death. The girl had never expected that the ancestral magic treasure which she had regarded as the most powerful magic weapon and which she deeply relied on would suddenly turn into a ticking time bomb. To tell you the truth, your female bodyguard won't be of any use against a ghost of that level just now. So, I suggest that you hire someone else. Hire someone else. Komiya Ryoko frowned. Money isn't a problem, but where on earth should I find someone? Me? Ajwa pointed to himself. Good quality and cheap, I'm on call. Classmate Komiya, you don't have to worry about my job. Even if I'm at work, my spirit sword can lock down enemies from 1,000 miles away and strike accurately. It's more than enough to protect you in Wuxia Nation. Actually, Ajwa was being modest. As the number 2 spirit sword on the list of swords, it could in fact take care of every corner of the world, not just Wuxia Nation. The corners of Komiya Ryoko's mouth twitched. She sighed in her heart at the shamelessness of the man in front of her. She had clearly come to Shio Nation to investigate him. She had come to seek revenge. But this guy, not only wasn't he hiding from her, he was even prepared to stick close to her and be her bodyguard. This was outrageous. Is the food in your general administration of 100 schools canteen so good that you're actually so thick-skinned? Komiya Ryoko glanced at Ajwa contemptuously. Although she said that, in her heart, she actually felt that this plan wasn't bad. Since Ajwa's battle strength wasn't as bad as the rumors said, protecting her indeed wouldn't be a problem. In addition, if Ajwa was always by her side, it might be easier for her to investigate the whereabouts of that dead fish-eyed boy. Komiya Ryoko had a hunch all along. She felt that Ajwa definitely had something to do with that boy. Maybe they even knew each other. What do you think? At that moment, Ajwa looked at the girl with a smile, looking forward to her reply. According to the market price. With your battle strength, your monthly salary is at least 100 million yuan. Our Komiya family has limited funds, I'm afraid. I don't need that much. Just give me the normal golden core price. Ajwa smiled. After successfully haggling, the girl gave a smug smile, which disappeared in an instant. Crossing her arms, she assumed the familiar posture of a rich young miss and looked at Ajwa. Then, I will reluctantly bestow upon you the favor of being my bodyguard. But you're only responsible for my safety. You're not allowed to ask about anything else. No problem. Ajwa nodded contentedly. All right, let's go to a hotel. I checked. The nearby Holiday Inn on the old street is more affordable. A hotel? Ajwa looked at Komiya Ryoko in surprise. What? Is there a problem? Is the hotel not open? No. Ajwa smiled evilly. It's like this, classmate Komiya. I'm only responsible for safety. But if I want to get a room, that's another price. Who wants to get a room with you? I'll never get a room with you in this lifetime. Dream on. Komiya Ryoko's face instantly lit up again and she shouted, I'm talking about you and me escorting these 3 people to a hotel. This attempt to hide her shyness by shouting made Ajwa's heart beat wildly again. Since he had become famous, there had actually been a lot of girls around him. Old secretary's son would sometimes recommend some beautiful civil servants to him and introduce girlfriends to him. Ajwa had seen a lot of beautiful girls. But it was rare to see someone as cute as Ryoko. I'm just joking, don't be angry, classmate Komiya. Like before, Ajwa quickly apologized. Then let's go. This B*TSH was quick to do it, and quick to apologize. Thus Komiya Ryoko wanted to scold him but couldn't bring herself to do so. But just as they were about to leave the Taoist temple, the girl stopped. Oh, I suddenly thought of something. Ajwa asked in a soft voice, what is it? Komiya Ryoko, I have to block any information about these 3 people. So I can't pay for the hotel room for the time being. Can you pay for it first? I'll add it to your salary when I do the accounting later. Sure. Ajwa readily agreed. My body is fine. Pervert. Komiya Ryoko took a deep breath, clenched her small, trembling fist, and kicked Ajwa's calf hard before she quickly dashed out the door. Ajwa chased after her. That felt good. Classmate Komiya. A few more times. Komiya Ryoko, shameless. Chapter 1471. The Holiday Inn on the ancient street was a time-honored brand of this ancient cultivation street. It was the first hotel to be established after the ancient street entered the commercial mode. Huagua Water Curtain Group was a shareholder, and Ajwa happened to have friends in the underworld in this hotel. Since Komiya Ryoko wanted to hide the identity of these three people and create the illusion that they died accidentally, it was completely unrealistic to use their temporary ID cards or passports to register. Fortunately, Ajwa was here. It was just a matter of greeting. They would check in first. In a couple of days, Ajwa would send someone to get new IDs for Brother Wei and the other two people. This was similar to the international stain witness protection mechanism, which could completely hide all clues about these three people. It's all done, Ajwa said with a straight face. He had considered everything for Komiya Ryoko, and had also secretly called for a few brothers from the war sect to come and keep an eye on them. The room that he had arranged was right next to the three-person room that Brother Wei and the others were staying in. Ajwa had already booked all the rooms on the left and right as well as the seats facing the door. Of course, Ryoko Komiya didn't know about these things. Truth be told, with so many things happening all of a sudden, Komiya Ryoko felt that even if she was lucky enough to escape the Pen Fairy's calamity, she would still be flustered. Without Ajwa, the situation might have been even more complicated. She stared at Ajwa anxiously. In fact, she wanted to thank him, but when she saw that his gaze was fixed on her, she quickly turned her slightly red face away. Don't look at me with such perverted eyes. This is what you should do as a bodyguard. This clearly wasn't an angry voice. Ajwa could sense the young girl's gratitude towards him from her playful voice, as well as her loveliness. Understood. Ajwa nodded, his eyes full of tenderness. He had never believed in the feeling of love at first sight, now he knew. However, matters of the heart couldn't be rushed. Although he was teasing her, an appropriate amount of teasing was a catalyst. Excessive teasing would have the opposite effect. Thus, Ajwa would be very serious for the time being. Relaxation was the way of the king. As for getting a room, that was just lip service. Even if he and the girl really lived in the same house, it was impossible for him to really do anything to Komiya Yoshiko. After all, he wasn't an adult yet. At this time, the two of them were sitting on the mahogany sofa in the hotel lobby, each with their own thoughts. Soon the girl's phone rang. It was the female bodyguard. Ryoko Komiya quickly answered, "Junko, where are you?" "I'm sorry, Mississippi. I'm still handling the extension procedures at the Immigration Bureau. I still have to go to the hospital later." "I remember I asked for leave yesterday. I just saw your message, but I might not be able to rush over today." Komiya Ryoko facepalmed. She didn't expect to forget about it. "How much time do you need? If we hurry, we should be able to get there before 6 tomorrow morning. I can only ask Miss to look after it for a period of time." After hanging up, Ryoko fell into silence. In that case, she would have to stay in this hotel for the night? "Do you want to stay the night?" Ajwa asked. With Ajwa's profound cultivation, it wasn't strange that he had good hearing. Komiya Ryoko glanced at him and sneered. "What are you up to now?" "I'm a gentleman." Ajwa smiled. "If classmate Komiya wants to stay, I'll arrange a room. But the three-person suite that Aoi and the other two are staying in is full. I'll arrange for 2 single rooms diagonally across from each other, is that okay?" 2 single rooms? Komiya Ryoko gave him a contemptuous look. She also didn't know why. The man in front of her suddenly became serious. Ajwa looked at the girl in front of him and raised his eyebrows. "Or does classmate Komiya want to stay with me?" Before he could finish, Komiya Ryoko directly interrupted him. "Stop. Just 2 single rooms, that's pretty good. When Junko comes tomorrow morning, you'll leave with me. Just return the extra room and be done with it. But I'll still have to use your ID card to open the room?" "Understood." Ajwa nodded obediently. The girl thought he would need an ID card to register, but in fact, Ajwa didn't need one at all. Just as he turned around to explain the situation to the hotel owner, on the mahogany sofa, Komiya Ryoko buried her face deep between her knees. She absolutely couldn't take out her ID card. Because this was her secret. Elsewhere, in the cold weapons shop, the stone reeds that Wang Ling had thrown directly made a big hole in the ceiling of the weapons shop. This wasn't Wang Ling's original intention. He had intended to deliberately slip his hand when he had thrown it, and then get the snack coupon. In the end, in the direction he had thrown it, He had happened to see something happening on Audio's side, so he had lent a hand in passing. He had used his strength cautiously, afraid that if he used too much force, the stone reeds would fly over his head. Fortunately, the ghosts that had been released from the Jianghu family's ghost chart were strong enough, and they happened to stand in a straight line, forming a resistance that perfectly blocked the subsequent impact of the stone reeds. Wang Ling, you're that awesome? Hero Gua and the others had incredulous expressions on their faces. Very quickly, Audua had already sent someone to bring back the stone reeds that he had thrown. As soon as Hero Gua held it, he instantly smiled slightly as he directly sensed that something was wrong. I see, what's going on? Liyue was curious. Hero Gua then tossed the stone reeds to Liyue. Do you want to die? Such a heavy thing. Liyue caught it with both hands, and was astonished to find that the stone reeds were actually as light as a feather in her hands. It was only then that Liyue suddenly realized. A perfect application of the light body spell. I never thought that Wang Ling would use the light body spell in a place like this. Hero Gua laughed. If this spell had been used to change the weight of the stone reeds and make them as light as a feather, then it wouldn't have been strange for them to have flown such a long distance. Even someone at the Foundation establishment stage would be able to do it. Of course, it wasn't Wang Ling who had used the light body spell. It was Audua who had deduced the stone reeds' origin after seeing them. Then, as Wang Ling's #1 disciple, he had directly cast this spell on the stone reeds without saying a word to help cover for Wang Ling. There was no need for text messaging or long-distance telepathy. This was an invisible tacit understanding between master and disciple. But this counts as cheating, does it still count? Hero Gua looked at the shop manager at that moment and asked. The shop manager smiled. Of course, he wasn't allowed to use spells. Actually, no matter how bad Wang Ling's results were, he would still be able to qualify for the snack lottery in the end. Because that had been Old Man Sun's plan to begin with. But no one else knew about this. Thus, Lotus Sun hurriedly turned to look at him. She didn't say anything and just stared at the shop manager until he broke out in a cold sweat. The shop manager, indeed he didn't, Lotus Sun, so? The shop manager, so this isn't cheating. It's just the proper use of spells. Lotus Sun continued to stare at him with a smile on her face. The shop manager wiped at his sweat and continued to say, Congratulations to student Wang Ling for winning a first prize marrow cleansing pill. In addition, as a reward for the proper use of spells, student Wang Ling will receive 100 free snack lottery tickets from our shop. Very good. Lotus Sun nodded in satisfaction. Chapter 1472. Having achieved his goal, Wang Ling was in a great mood. Everyone left the cold weapons shop contentedly. Before they left, Lotus Sun gave the shop manager a note. After reading it, the manager hurriedly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He hurriedly summoned an employee and passed the note on. Quick, send the message. Do as Miss says and immediately prepare. Miss already figured it out. That's to be expected. Miss is a very smart person, and it'll be a problem if she catches the slightest loophole. On the other side, Wang Ling stared at the jade bottle in his hand in silence. Marrow cleansing pill. To him, this thing was actually jelly beans and had no other use. A regular marrow cleansing pill was used to purify the spirit root and keep the meridians in a cultivator's body clean, thereby speeding up cultivation. It had a miraculous effect on the cultivation of cultivators with lower realms. This was because the lower a cultivator's realm was, the worse the environment in the body would be, and the more impurities would be expelled. This was also the reason why a lot of Foundation establishment cultivators would have a black, sticky substance on their bodies after taking the marrow cleansing pill. It was the poison that had been entrenched in their bodies for a long time. But for Wang Ling, given his constitution, he already couldn't get anything out of it. Instead, this marrow cleansing pill would be of greater help to others. Thus, Wang Ling decided that he would find an opportunity to split this marrow cleansing pill into two and give it to them. After more than half a semester together, Super Chin and Hero Gua had already become Wang Ling's closest friends. It was only natural for him to give them gifts. At that moment, Super Chin and Hero Gua's faces were full of envy. Unfortunately, they didn't know the lightness body technique, so they couldn't throw the stone reeds further. On the way to the flagship store of crispy noodle snacks on the old street, both of them sighed with emotion. Wang Ling was indeed the mascot of their class. He was simply the only koi in the cultivation world. But then again, they did feel that the atmosphere on the old street today was a little strange, but they couldn't pinpoint exactly what was strange about it. No matter where they went, the shop owners and staff would stare at them with smiles on their faces. Their attitudes were so good that it made one's hair stand on end. Super Chin even wondered if someone would offer him toilet paper if he went to the washroom. Say, do the people on this old street have something to do with Huagua Water Curtain Group? Super Chin whispered to Hirogua on the way. I don't think so. Hirogua shook his head. The main thing was that Lotus Sun hadn't informed them in advance when she came out this time, so she wasn't as imposing as she used to be. Super Chin, Hirogua and Li Yoyue's hearts were as clear as a mirror. It was obvious that the girl was learning how to keep a low profile from someone. But how much would it cost to replace all the people on the street with Huagua Water Curtain Group's own people? They were going on a low-key trip, and Hirogua felt that Lotus Sun had no reason to do so. On the other side, Wang Ling and the others had just stepped out of Stone Thatch shop when Jiang Yingying walked in with Wei Ji. The manager glanced at Jiang Yingying in alarm, then walked over with a smile. Welcome both of you. Seeing Jiang Yingying's hesitation, Wei Ji sighed and took the initiative to say, it's like this. We also want to participate in this stone reed throwing event. Also, may I ask, what rewards did those people get just now? When she asked this question, Jiang Yingying's face flushed red, and she felt like an infatuated girl who had been following them. That's confidential. The manager smiled. It's not convenient for us to disclose our customers' privacy. Also, participating in the stone reed throwing event costs 1,000 yuan per time. Isn't the first round free to try? And why is it 1,000 yuan? Isn't it 100? Jiang Yingying and Wei Ji were both astonished. Because when they had been eavesdropping outside the door just now, this wasn't what the shop staff had said at all. Because the previous prizes have already been taken, the subsequent prizes will be of higher value. This is equivalent to increasing the prize pool, so of course the price will go up. Also, we're limited to the first batch of customers who participate in the stone reed throwing event for free every day. The manager smiled. This targeted measure had in fact been arranged on the small slip of paper that Lotus Sun had given him just now. It could only be said that she was too vigilant. Ever since fusing with Mysterious C's battle prowess, Lotus Sun's perception had long since surpassed that of ordinary people. Thus, no matter how Jiang Yingying disguised herself, Mysterious C had already recognized her aura. Thus, she couldn't escape Lotus Sun's sight at all. Sun Yinger called this ability Love Rival Radar. What stood out was the principle of precision, nipping the problem in the bud and nipping it in the bud. To put it simply, it could be roughly summed up in one sentence. You can boldly chase after me, but I'll definitely arrange everything clearly on your way, but although it was targeted, it couldn't be too obvious. In the end, the manager still gave Jiang Yingying preferential treatment. Seeing that you're so beautiful, we can give you a buy one get one free for the first order. The more you buy the first order, we can consider doubling the price. If you can't tell me what the prizes were for that batch of people just now, can you at least tell me what level they won? Jiang Yingying couldn't help but feel angry when she thought of Lotus Sun's smiling face when she walked out. She didn't want to lose to this evil capitalist girl. To be honest, the manager stared blankly at this question. Because the person who had just thrown the first prize wasn't Lotus Sunday. But it was clear that the young lady in front of him had misunderstood something, but it didn't matter anymore. His mission was to keep this fake couple firmly locked in his shop. Thus, the manager said with a smile, it's the first prize. You have to throw it 5,000 meters to reach the target. Since the first prize was taken, the new first prize is a Supreme Grade Foundation Establishment Pill. A Supreme Grade Foundation Establishment Pill? Wei Ji and Jiang Yingying were both stunned. This thing was really worth a lot of money. The market value of a high-grade Foundation Establishment Pill was 5 million yuan per pill, which was close to the price of a house. The Supreme Grade Foundation Establishment Pill would be worth at least double that, going straight to 10 million. This cold weapon shop was indeed abnormal. How could it use such a large prize as a bet? So Wei Ji immediately thought of two possibilities. The first was that the prize might be fake. The second was the business's trick. They would offer a sufficiently attractive prize and then get people to complete the impossible task. Was it really possible to throw the stone reeds 5,000 meters? Yingying, why don't we just forget about it? Wei Ji said very calmly. But Jiang Yingying wouldn't listen to him. I don't want to. 5,000 meters. If she can do it, why can't I? Then, the girl stared at the manager with a serious expression. 5,000 meters, right? I'll buy it 30 times first. 30 times, that was 30,000 yuan? For a girl with a small amount of savings, this was definitely a huge sum of money. But Jiang Yingying felt that she could break even. If the first round was doubled, then she would have 60 chances. It was just 5,000 meters. If Lotus Sun could do it, so could she. As long as she got this supreme-grade foundation establishment pill, she would be able to make a comeback. Very well, miss, thank you for your patronage. The manager smiled. After completing the payment process, he took the initiative to take a stone reeds and put them in Jiang Yingying's hands. The moment the stone reeds entered her hands, they felt a heavy weight. Jiang Yingying felt like she almost knelt down on the spot. Why were these stone reeds so heavy? Chapter 1473. Previously, Jiang Xiaoqi had witnessed everything that had happened when Ah Wei and the others went to the Taoist temple. It was just that he didn't know what on earth had happened there. Then he saw Ah Zhua and a flat-chested girl walk out of the Taoist temple. Jiang Xiaoqi felt that the girl looked familiar, but couldn't recall where he had seen her before. On the other hand, the three men from the Jiogong family obediently followed behind the two of them. They didn't look right, their faces were pale as if they had been frightened by something. Who was this girl? Why had Ah Zhua come here? Curious, Jiang Xiaoqi followed them all the way to the entrance of the Holiday Inn on Old Street, muttering in his heart, so they weren't here for Yingying. To be cautious, he didn't go in right away and only noted down where they were staying. Then he returned to where Jiang Yingying was. Old Street was now full of people from Huagua Water Curtain Group, so it was really too easy for him, a Secretary General, to find out where they were. Yes, Secretary General, that girl is still in my shop. The manager of the cold weapons shop contacted Jiang Xiaoqi secretly. Why is she still here? The corners of Jiang Xiaoqi's mouth twitched. It'll probably be a long time. The girl bought 30 chances to throw the stone reeds and we gave her 30 more. Just now, she threw 66 meters and because it's an auspicious number we gave her 66 more times. How long does she have to throw? Jiang Xiaoqi sweated. Can't you guys persuade her? We did. Moreover, the boyfriend who came with him had also tried to persuade him. It's her who won't give up. She said that if eldest miss can throw 5,000 meters, so can she, and she has to surpass her, said the manager. Hearing this, Jiang Xiaoqi was completely stunned. Hadn't he and Jiang Yingying pretended to be a couple to cause trouble back then? Why was this little girl competing with eldest miss now? Suddenly, Jiang Xiaoqi realized that in some sense Jiang Yingying and he were quite similar. They had gone fishing, but in the end he had become the fish caught. Help me calculate how long she'll have to wait. Normally, it'll be over in 2 hours. That long? Because there aren't many stone reeds in the shop, and we have to pick them up after throwing them out. At this moment, the manager looked at Jiang Yingying's throwing record and sighed. Miss Jiang is on her 8th throw and is currently resting. But I think it's better for the Secretary General not to interfere in this matter. What do you mean? Jiang Xiaoqi was a little displeased. How could he let an employee tell him what to do when he was doing things? Because this is what eldest miss wants. The manager said, the young lady seems to have noticed the girl following us, so she asked us to find a way to keep her in the store. I can only obey. This stupid girl? When Jiang Xiaoqi heard this, a bitter expression appeared on his face. At this time the store manager asked again, so, do you have any questions now? As long as it doesn't conflict with the mission assigned by Miss, I can help with anything else. As an employee of the group, he certainly didn't want to offend either side. With no other choice, Jiang Xiaoqi could only instruct. Since young Miss asked her to stay in the shop, then I'll have to trouble you to look after her. Also help me keep an eye on that fake boyfriend of hers. He had a premonition that something might happen on the old street today, so it would be safer for Jiang Yingying to stay in the shop. The people in the cold weapon shop were all on the same side. Under the watchful eyes of the public, the fake boyfriend wouldn't do anything strange. Don't worry, head secretary. The manager nodded. Also, you have to replenish her energy. These stone reeds are very heavy. Don't let her get hurt, understand? If this girl gets hurt, I won't be able to protect you. Even if the old man gets involved, the most he can do is push you out as cannon fodder. This girl has another identity? The manager was puzzled. He looked at Jiang Yingying. She didn't look like someone who was generous. The main reason was that when Jiang Yingying was making payments, the manager accidentally glanced at the balance in Jiang Yingying's wallet on her phone. Including the fee she had paid out, the total was about 80,000 yuan. It was far less than eldest Mrs. I'll tell you, but you can't leak it, Jiang Xiaoqi said. Okay, head secretary. The manager nodded. Jiang Xiaoqi took a deep breath and said, her grandfather is Marshal Jiang? Yes, that one, the warrior sage. The manager, After the call ended, Jiang Shaoqi felt a lot more at ease. If someone was helping to keep an eye on things, he wouldn't have to be so worried. Furthermore, this manager already knew Jiang Yingying's identity, so he didn't have to worry about his service attitude. But Jiang Shaoqi still felt that there was something strange about the contents of the call just now. Wait. He remembered that the manager had just said that eldest miss had thrown 5,000 meters with her stone reeds. It wasn't like Jiang Shaoqi hadn't played with that thing before. Under normal circumstances, could a foundation establishment cultivator do that? So, if she hadn't cheated, then the most likely outcome was that eldest miss had hidden her strength. Of course, so far he didn't have any concrete evidence. Jiang Shaoqi realized that although he had come today with the goal of secretly protecting Jiang Yingying, it seemed that he had reaped a lot of unexpected rewards. Elsewhere, Wang Ling walked out of the snack shop contentedly, having used up all the lucky draw tickets. Basically, he could freely choose any of the special flavor crispy noodle snacks in this shop on Old Street. He had drawn almost 100 boxes of them, all of which were limited versions with special flavors. Because there weren't enough in the shop, 99 of them would be directly delivered to the Wang family's small villa after they were made elsewhere. So now Wang Ling only had one box. If he had 20, he would probably be able to finish them in 2 days. The main thing was that the flavors were all different. Wang Ling didn't know why, but this crispy noodle snack flagship store seemed to have a lot of flavors that he had never tried before. I understand, so what on earth is this roasted silkworm chrysalis flavored crispy noodle snack? Are you sure this thing is edible? As they walked out, Hirogwa saw the new crispy noodle snack flavor in Wang Ling's hand, and instantly felt that it had a strong flavor. Roasted silkworm chrysalis is delicious, it's very famous in Winter City. It's full of protein. Liu smiled. At that moment, she saw Wang Ling take something shiny out of the crispy noodle snack. What did Wang Ling draw this time? Everyone was amazed. After all, snacks like crispy noodle snacks often had card redemption events, so it wasn't strange for small cards to appear. However, this card was simply too dazzling. It was a flash card that glowed with a golden light. Everyone calmed down. Then they saw the words engraved with a laser on the card. Old Street Holiday Hotel Presidential Suite Annual Card. Wang Ling was shocked. Nowadays, eating crispy noodle snacks also gave you a room card? Chapter 1474. 2F*** King. It really is a room card, even crispy noodle snacks nowadays can draw this kind of thing? Hirogwa exclaimed. Hirogwa and Liu also stared in horror at this glittering golden card. In the past, crispy noodle snacks had drawn either water margin cards or assembly cards for cooperation with some anime IP. A lot of people probably had special memories of this. After all, they were all kids from that era. Snacks that you spent money on could be wasted, but the cards inside had to be collected. Super Chin and Hirogwa both remembered the fanaticism with which they had collected the Trouser Pocket Monster assembly cards back then. Until now, they still kept those cards safely in their cabinets. It was outrageous that a childhood snack could draw a room card. Now Lotus Sun finally knew how awesome Super Chen's blessed mouth was. It had clearly been a joke, but who knew it would become a reality? How could a normal crispy noodle snack draw something like a room card? So there was no need to think about it to know that this had to be Grandpa's handiwork. For a moment, the situation was awkward. Super Chin, Hirogwa and Liu's minds were racing. They had all been bribed by Lotus Sun, and their main task was to break the awkwardness and secretly assist them. Well, this card doesn't seem like a bad idea as a gift for Uncle and Auntie? In any case, classmate Wang Ling hasn't bound it yet, right? I think it needs to be activated by scanning the code and registering with your ID card, Liu said first. Actually, Wang Ling felt that this was indeed a good suggestion. He remembered that when the two of them had been dating back then, they had often come to this old street. After Father Wang got married, it was said that the two of them had revisited this old place on what seemed to be Valentine's Day. Then, Mother Wang had become pregnant with him. For Wang Ling himself, this ancient street actually had an extraordinary significance. It could only be said that Liu's mind worked quickly. It's pretty good, Uncle and Auntie will definitely be very happy, Hirogwa added. Super Chin, not bad, maybe the next time Uncle and Auntie come. Lotus Sun, Hirogwa and Liu, shut up. Super Chin. Thus, this matter was successfully fooled and Lotus Sun breathed a sigh of relief, but she still wanted to ask what on earth was going on. Grandpa wasn't such a frivolous person. Without hesitation, she took a photo of the room card and sent it to Old Man Sunday. On the other side, after Old Man Sun received the news, A cold smile appeared on his face. As expected of Rongrong, she actually noticed it so quickly, he sighed in his heart. Then he clicked on the picture sent by his precious granddaughter. His old face immediately darkened. He transferred the picture to the Old Street Replacement Plan Working Group that was temporarily set up by the group's higher-ups. Old man son, I asked you to put a card inside. I didn't ask you to put a room card. May I ask who is causing trouble here? Come out and admit it. Like I said, it's not a room card. Who would put such a thing in their snacks? Sigh, I knew it wasn't a room card. But old master, there's nothing we can do. The higher the rank, the more oppressive it is. This is all Brother Jiang's idea. The members of the group started to shift the blame. The corner of old man son's mouth twitched. He knew it, this Jiang Xiaoche was up to something again. So, what was this kid trying to do? What on earth had classmate Wang Ling done to offend him? What a helpful young man. What cute dead fish eyes. Although old man son didn't understand, he was also a little angry. But Jiang Xiaoche had worked for him for many years after all, and he didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality so soon. He could only privately ask Jiang Xiaoche about the situation. On the other side, Jiang Xiaoche was clearly prepared. It's like this, old master, this is what I think. Actually, this is a test. And also a test for classmate Wang Ling. Aren't you the least bit curious about how a hot-blooded teenager would react after seeing something like this? Jiang Xiaoche's words caused old man son to sink into silence. After a long while, Sunny Yuan frowned and said, I don't think Wang Ling is that kind of person. Besides, looking at the current situation, it's just unrequited love for Rongrong. How could he have such crooked thoughts? You can't judge a book by its cover, old master. Jiang Xiaoche was relentless. Then do you want to make a bet? Old man son smiled. Sure, what would you like to bet on? If you lose, you're not allowed to cause trouble for Wang Ling and Rongrong in the future. Jiang Xiaoche was silent, but still nodded and said, fine deal. He knew that he had no other choice. Although the old man spoke politely, there was in fact a hidden killing intent. This was actually a warning. Although Jiang Xiaoche was jealous of Wang Ling, he wouldn't throw away his future and career just to go against Wang Ling. It was just that if he lost this time, there would be no more chances between him and Lotus Sunday. After the call, Jiang Xiaoche actually felt very conflicted. He suddenly looked forward to losing this bet. If that was the case, he should be able to completely sever the indecent thoughts he had about eldest miss that were hidden in the depths of his heart. Actually, he was well aware that this kind of thinking was unrealistic to begin with. Maybe it was time for him to honestly find someone who also liked him, marry a wife and have children as soon as possible, and settle down. In the penthouse suite of the Holiday Inn on Old Street, Jiang Xiaoche leaned back on the sofa and pondered deeply. At the end of Old Street's front street, the most famous store here was the most distinctive Hanfu Experience store. Before coming here, Father Wang and Mother Wang had strongly recommended it to Wang Ling. Everyone arrived in front of this time-honored experience store. It actually wasn't big, but there were a lot of customers coming and going. When all was said and done, it was famous. The girls were always the most excited when it came to changing clothes. Li Yue stared blankly at the people coming out of the experience store and whispered to Lotus Sun in a low voice, Rongrong, do you see the cutest couple in front with the height difference? I see them. Pretty, right? Pretty. Lotus Sun said. This Hanfu is very famous. It's a couple's Hanfu with a blue mandarin duck design, and it's very famous on Old Street, Li Yue said. Lotus Sun felt that this guy was hinting at something again. She also wanted to wear something like this with Wang Ling. But they weren't in that kind of relationship. The girl's eyes were full of envy as she looked at the couple in Hanfu going in and out of the store. She quickly adjusted her thoughts, then stepped in first. Everyone, let's change into Hanfu. Yue and I will pick out clothes for you three guys first. That was what she said. Actually, it was mainly for Wang Ling. When they had been at the entrance of the Hanfu store just now, Lotus Sun had immediately taken a fancy to a white Hanfu hanging in a sealed glass cabinet. It was a white embroidered crane suit, all embroidered patterns and designs made of gold silk. Paired with a long red belt with the finishing touch, it gave off a feeling of immortality. She imagined Wang Ling in this Hanfu, and her face instantly heated up. I think classmate Wang Ling looks pretty good in this, Lotus Sun said. Miss, you have good taste. At that moment, a man dressed like a waiter in hemp came out of the Hanfu Experience store. I'm the guide here. The Hanfu that Miss just saw is called Chuyin Chuyue. As he said this, he looked at Wang Ling with a smile. So, classmate Wang, do you want to try it? Li Yuyue and the others had thought that Wang Ling wouldn't compromise so easily, and had started to prepare words of persuasion. To everyone's surprise, Wang Ling actually agreed right away. Wang Ling, okay, the waiter's smile didn't falter. Then little brother, please follow me to the men's changing area over there. We'll have someone to change it for you. Take more pictures. This was the task that Mother Wang had given him. Completing the task was more important. It was just a change of clothes, that's all. About 10 minutes later. With the help of the staff in the Hanfu store, Wang Ling successfully changed into this Chuyun Chuyue and walked out of the changing room. In just a split second, it was as if even the air in the originally lively Hanfu Experience store had frozen. For a moment, countless eyes fell on Wang Ling. They didn't know who this person in the white Hanfu was. However, the immortal aura and youthful vibe he exuded instantly attracted everyone's attention. Lotus Sun stared fixedly at the brand new youngster in front of her. It was as if time had come to a standstill, and the sound of a beating heart beat rhythmically in the girl's heart. All of a sudden, Lotus Sun felt a little selfish. She actually wanted to sneak the youngster in front of her into her pocket. Wang Ling. As expected, you are my treasure. Chapter 1475. Wang Ling's Chuyun Danyue was really too stylish. He was like a teenager who had walked out of a painting. The golden white crane pattern embroidered on the lower part of the Han costume looked as if it was about to spread its wings and fly away under his feet. Lotus Sun noticed that a lot of girls in the store were secretly taking photos. Secretly taking pictures without permission was actually a very rude behavior. But Wang Ling actually didn't care. With the upgraded version of the Great Shielding Spell, he felt very at ease. These photos looked normal for now, but if they were to be spread, they would automatically be censored. Furthermore, after the censoring was over, the memories of Wang Ling in these people's memories would gradually disappear. But while Wang Ling didn't care that much, Lotus Sun was clearly disgusted by the behavior of these people. Classmate Wang Ling, wait for us in the VIP room. Then Lotus Sun directly showed the waiter her privileged black card. Although the waiter was from Huagua Water Curtain Group, his acting skills were very good. After seeing the privileged black card, he was stunned at first, and then quickly put on a shocked expression. Then please follow me. The VIP room in the Han Costume Experience store had separate men's and women's changing rooms, a lounge and special services, so there was no need to wait in line. The girl hadn't directly taken it out earlier because she had wanted to keep a low profile, but now she felt that she had no choice but to do it. The girls around them were looking at Wang Ling with burning gazes. Some of them clearly already had boyfriends, but they were still staring at him like they were infatuated. Didn't they have any sense of shame? And those men. They actually allowed their girlfriends to take photos of other boys. Lotus Sun felt her head heat up, and she hurriedly pulled Wang Ling's hand toward the VIP room. It wasn't until they entered the spacious room that the girl suddenly realized what she had just done. From the reception room of the Han Costume Experience store to the VIP room, it was about a dozen meters away. She had actually held the youngster's hand all the way. Classmate Wang Ling. I didn't do it on purpose. Lotus Sun dropped her forehead into her hand, her face red. She felt that she had been impulsive in the end. Wang Ling looked at Lotus Sun's delicate hand and felt that it was slightly sweaty. Her long fingers with distinct knuckles were holding onto his hand as if she were holding onto something very important. When Li Yuyue and the others slowly entered the VIP room through the main entrance, Lotus Sun finally let go of his hand in a fluster. Li Yuyue laughed inwardly at this scene. The girl's reaction was really so innocent that it made her feel even more adorable. She hurriedly stepped forward to take Lotus Sun's arm, breaking the awkward situation. Lotus Sun was secretly glad that she had brought Li Yuyue with her. Lotus Sun was secretly glad that she had brought Li Yuyue along. She had appeared just at the right time. Before Wang Rong of Sun Ling of Fei, Li and Li Ling and said, Hua Ling Wang Yu Long Fei, Ling, and Ling, two of Ling to say Yang two of Ling to said. From his personal aesthetic point of view, he felt that this flying to the moon through the clouds outfit was just SOSO. If he had long, elegant hair, he might have been more in line with the image of a beautiful young man with an ancient style in people's minds. But long hair was a little shameful. Wang Ling felt that he couldn't do that. So, was it really that good-looking? Wang Ling stared at the full-length mirror in the lounge and fell into deep thought. In the single suite of the Holiday Inn on Old Street, sitting alone on the bed, Ryoko Kumiya suddenly felt a sense of emptiness. That odd joie had actually really left her alone in the suite. Although her suite and Ajua's were only separated by a wall, Wang Ling's and Zhu Juanyang's suite had always been the same. But for some reason Ryoko Kumiya felt inexplicably displeased. Until now she still hadn't figured out why the replica ghost chart had rioted. What if it rioted again? What an incompetent bodyguard. Ryoko Kumiya's heart was filled with resentment. So boring. The girl mumbled as she lay on the bed, bored to death. The local variety shows she was passionate about could have been used to pass the time. But she couldn't see them in Huashio. The walls were too thick and she had to climb over the wall to watch a variety show. The most important thing was that it was illegal to climb over the wall now, and Ryoko Kumiya didn't want to cause trouble. It would be bad if she was caught and ordered to be deported. Without variety shows to pass the time, Ryoko Kumiya naturally wanted to make her life a little more fulfilling. This ancient Cultivation cultural street was a famous scenic spot in Shanghai City. It wasn't easy for her to come here, but she could only hole up in the hotel to keep an eye on things, which was really too depressing. Actually, it wasn't like she couldn't go out. After all, Ah Wei and the other two guys were a lot more well-behaved than she had imagined. But Ryoko was afraid that Ajua would make fun of her. As the future heir of the Ryoko family, how could she not have this little bit of willpower? Thus the girl could only endure it. At the same time she secretly competed with Ajua in her heart. Ajua, let's see when you'll come find me, next to Ryoko's room. At that moment, Ajua was leaning against the headboard with one hand as a pillow. Although there was a wall between them, he could hear the girl's voice very clearly. It also included the sound of her breathing. Ajua felt that this was a very subtle feeling. After hearing Ryoko Kumiya's murmur, he couldn't help curling his lips. He glanced at the clock on the wall and estimated the time. After checking into the single suite, he had deliberately given Ryoko the cold shoulder for a while. He hadn't expected the girl's patience to be stronger than he had imagined. Although she was complaining, she didn't directly rush over to knock on his door. But given Ryoko's character and temper, it would probably be very difficult for her to take the initiative to look for him, right? But Ajua didn't intend to spoil her. If she really did, he wouldn't be able to spoil her. He had to be extremely patient to deal with this kind of little girl. Then he closed his eyes and waited patiently. After who knew how much time had passed, he heard Ryoko Kumiya's breathing become more and more rapid, and he immediately knew that the girl's patience had probably reached its limit. Now she was just one step away. Ajua had a feeling that the next second the girl would rush out and knock on his door. However, it wasn't the sound of the door opening that greeted him. Instead, it was a muffled thud. There's something wrong with that sound. This time it was Ajua who couldn't take it anymore. He hurriedly got up and ran over to check out the situation. After swiping the MasterCard to open the girl's door, Ajua saw Ryoko sitting on the ground, clutching her left ankle with a pained expression on her face. "What's wrong?" Ajua asked. Seeing that Ryoko was silent, he made a rough guess based on the current situation. She was in a hurry to open the door, but ended up tripping and spraining her ankle? After saying that, the girl's face immediately turned red. I didn't want to go out." Ajua leaned over and couldn't help pinching Ryoko's face. "Classmate Ryoko, are you an idiot?" He laughed bitterly in his heart. He had wanted to trick Ryoko. In the end, he hadn't expected that he would be the one being tricked. "Don't pinch my face without permission." The girl protested softly. "Oh, sorry." Ajua smiled gently, then sat down cross-legged. As he spoke, he picked up the girl's left foot and placed it on his knee. "Don't. It's the bodyguard's responsibility to give emergency medical treatment to the employer. It's just work. Classmate Ryoko, don't misunderstand." Ajua looked at Ryoko and asked earnestly, "So, where does it hurt? Please tell me." Chapter 1476. Because he had been in the Immortal Police Special Operations Unit for a while, Ajua had only been an ordinary member of the unit during that time. But he had already accumulated valuable learning experience. The Immortal Police at the basic level generally wouldn't be directly assigned to dangerous charge missions, and would instead prioritize medical soldiers. Before Ajua had been officially transferred to the front line, he had been the son of the stars in the army, and his healing ability had been astonishing. He could even perform first aid on broken arms and legs, let alone this one who had only sprained her ankle. Ajua carefully probed the area where Jimiya Ryoko was in pain, and moved his fingers little by little. When he touched the core of the pain, he clearly felt the girl suddenly twitch in pain. This was a conditioned reflex. "Is it here?" With a focused expression, Audrey separated a strand of dark blue spirit energy from his fingertips. Then a cold energy seeped into the skin of the girl's ankle and seeped in little by little. Audrey secretly rejoiced in his heart that the situation wasn't too serious. According to his original plan, he had wanted to trick Jianghu Ryoko into knocking on his door, and then take advantage of the situation to take a stroll on the old street. Earlier he had seen the flying in the moon through the clouds photo that Wang Ling had sent him in private. His Shifu was too handsome. Audrey's heart itched when he saw it. Thus, he had started to fantasize about Jianghu Ryoko in Han Chinese clothing. It was only now, when he was treating Jianghu Ryoko, that he was startled to realize something. The most profound trick in the world was that there was no trick. Feelings are a very mysterious thing. When your heart is trapped by a person from the beginning, you are already on the passive side. And the emotionally passive were often the hardest to deal with. So when Audrey discovered that he liked Jianghu Ryoko, he instantly felt how difficult it had been for Lotus Sun. While he was pondering this, Jianghu Ryoko suddenly asked something out of the blue. Is your relationship with Lotus Sun very good? It didn't sound like much at first, but to Audrey, it sounded a little like a test of his will to live. Why are you suddenly asking this question? He stared unblinkingly at Jianghu Ryoko's foot and tried his best to remain calm. I see that you seem to be quite proficient in healing spells, so I thought of a piece of gossip from a while ago. Kiyomiya Yoshiko said, I remember that Miss Sun suddenly fell into a coma for no reason for a while. That's true. Audrey nodded. Then those tabloid media outlets reported that you seemed to be very concerned when she was unconscious. You went there several times in a row. I suspect that you two are dating, Kiyomiya Ryoko said. Hearing this, Audrey burst out laughing on the spot. Now these gossip marketing accounts were really ridiculous. How would he dare to fall in love with his master's wife? Even if he was given 10,000 guts, he still wouldn't dare. Looking at your reaction, it seems that there is no relationship between the two of you? For some reason, Kiyomiya Ryoko felt that her mood suddenly improved. She had been observing Audrey's first reaction. Usually the first reaction is hard to fake. Furthermore, Audrey didn't have any other expression on his face. In Kiyomiya Ryoko's eyes, this reaction was very real. She's just my junior sister, and old man Sun took a lot of care of me before. The Alliance of 10,000 Schools election is coming up, do you understand? Audrey smiled. That was all he could say. Kiyomiya Ryoko wasn't stupid. From what Audrey had said, the reason why he was so concerned about Lotus Sun was partly to return a favor to old man Sun, and partly because he wanted to win votes for the election. This reason could be said to be impeccable and without the slightest loophole. After talking for a while, the girl realized that this man in front of her, who had been portrayed as a liar in the Kiyomiya family, was unexpectedly very honest. Unexpectedly, he was very honest. Logically speaking, there was no need for him to explain it to her so clearly. Kiyomiya Ryoko was suspicious. She folded her arms and stared at Audrey. I'm your junior sister now. Do you treat all your junior sisters like this? I won't run over to treat some junior sister. Audrey shrugged helplessly, then pinched the spot where the girl had hurt the most. The sharp pain from the sprain had completely disappeared. Mission accomplished, Audrey got up. You're leaving just like that? Kiyomiya Ryoko also got up from the ground and looked at Audrey's back with an earnest look in her eyes. Audrey turned his head slightly, and out of the corner of his eye, he could see the words, I want to go out, written all over her face. What? You want me to stay? No way, Audrey sighed, and in the end he went along with the girl's wishes. It's going to be evening soon. I remember that there's a fountain show in the center of the old street at night. Do you want to go together? Who wants to go with you? If I have to go, I'll go alone. Kiyomiya Ryoko snorted. She took Audrey's suit jacket from the hanger and put it on, then put on her shoes and walked out of the room. As for you, you just need to fulfill your duty as a bodyguard and protect me from a short distance away. Behind her, the corners of Audrey's mouth rose wildly. After saying so much, in the end she still wanted him to accompany her. Elsewhere, in the cold weapons shop, Jiang Yingying lay on the mat, her forehead drenched in sweat. She felt that her arm no longer belonged to her at all. Even the makeup on her face was ruined and her wig had fallen off. Jiang Yingying had spent a long time putting on this disguise in the morning. Now it was completely gone, and Jiang Yingying's true appearance was revealed. Since the morning, the girl had tried everything she could, and the highest record she had achieved was 892 meters. To be honest, this record was in fact very astonishing. Looking at it, the shop manager was sweating inwardly. After all, she was Battle Saint's granddaughter. 892 meters was still a long way from the first prize. But if she cashed in these small prizes, she would have earned back all the money she had spent on participating in the stone reeds throwing event, and would even have some left over. The most important thing was that Jiang Yingying didn't know why, but she still hadn't finished throwing. Miss Jiang, you still have 19 throws left. I think you've already reached your limit today. How about saving it for now? Next time? By this time, the shop manager had already completed his task. Through precise manipulation, he had used his own method to keep Jiang Yingying in the shop. So you can save. Why didn't you say so earlier? The girl complained endlessly. She had wanted to leave long ago, but hadn't expected that there would be a save function. It's our negligence, Miss Jiang. The shop manager smiled slightly, then took out 2 special coupons and handed them to Jiang Yingying. This is an extra compensation. Don't tell me they're giving me more chances. Absolutely not. The shop manager said, these are the coupons for deluxe single suites at the Holiday Inn on Old Street. With the coupons, you can enjoy 1 night of hotel service for free. Also, all the entertainment facilities and beauty programs in the hotel are free for a limited time. But why 2 single suites? This hotel is the hottest. The double suites are already fully booked. Please forgive the inconvenience. The shop manager smiled. These 2 coupons were prepared by Jiang Xiaoche for him to give to the girl after the event. And when Jiang Yingying arrived, she would discover. These were 2 deluxe single suites. One was on the 1st floor and the other was on the 4th floor. They were 2 rooms that weren't even close to each other. Thank you very much. Jiang Yingying thanked him. Miss Jiang, take care. Come again next time. This was a free bargain and it made her feel very good. Although it looked like she had spent a lot of money today, it actually didn't seem like a big loss. When she left the cold weapons shop with Wei Ji, she realized that it was almost evening. Oh no, Wang Ling. Jiang Yingying dropped her forehead into her hand. She had been so focused on competing with Lotus Sun that she had completely left the task of following Wang Ling to Wang Ling. You're too tired today, rest early. It would be a waste not to use these hotel coupons. That's true. Jiang Yingying smiled. I really troubled brother Xiaoji to accompany me all day. Don't mention it. Wei Ji shook his head. The 2 of them walked side by side to the hotel. At this moment, Jiang Yingying was completely unaware that a man in a checkered shirt was secretly following her from behind. After seeing Jiang Yingying leave the cold weapons shop, the man followed her and reported the situation using a micro-communication device. Target confirmed. Are you sure it's Big Miss Sun herself? Yes. The man nodded. She just left the cold weapons shop. There's no mistake. Okay, then let's stick to the original plan. Chapter 1477. Wang Ling waited for less than 30 minutes before they came out of the changing room. For thousands of years, the overall style of traditional Chinese clothing had been light and plain. Although the style was simple, everyone looked different when they wore it. When they wore it, it gave off a faint artsy vibe as if they had traveled back in time to the past. This was also the reason why traditional Chinese clothing was sought after by so many young people in modern times. The traditional Chinese clothing that Li Yuyue had chosen was called Red Maple of the Ages. It was a red robe with maple leaves and white rust patterns that symbolized raging fire. From Wang Ling's point of view, this red traditional Chinese clothing really matched Li Yuyue's temperament. Li Yuyue was a sunny girl who was passionate about making delicious food and had been around fire all year round. Her extroverted personality could be felt in this simple traditional Chinese clothing. Where's Lotus Sun? On the other side, Super Chen and Hirogua also came out. The 2 brothers had chosen the same style, which was called Night Waves Don't Startle, and was a set of hanfu that was mainly black with a little white underwear. But to be honest, the effect of this Night Waves Don't Startle jacket was very average on Super Chen and Hirogua. Why did you choose this? It doesn't suit you. Li Yuyue dropped her forehead into her hand. Didn't I tell you before that you'd look better with red and gold? Any girl would feel helpless when it came to straight men's aesthetics. Boys usually didn't care too much about how they dressed. A lot of things were influenced by their environment and people weren't born to dress up. It took time to develop. Everyone was different when it came to wearing traditional Chinese clothing, so Li Yuyue didn't think it was a problem with the clothes. It was that Super Chin and Hirogua didn't quite fit the temperament of traditional Chinese clothing. One was a muscular, hot-blooded Shinibu teenager who was addicted to games but didn't forget to exercise. The other was a 10-year fat homebody who was addicted to games but didn't exercise. and spent all day flirting with his parrot at home. When the two of them came out in this traditional Chinese clothing, Li Yue felt that Super Chin and Hero Guo were like the foolish sons of a landlord. She couldn't bear to look at the scene. It's mainly because old Guo doesn't have a suitable size, and this unshaken Night Waves is the only one. It can't be helped. In order not to embarrass old Guo as his brother, of course I have to accompany him. Super Chin wrapped one arm around Hero Guo's neck and grinned. Of course he knew that this Han costume didn't really match his temperament, but he didn't care too much whether it looked good or not. The main thing was that Super Chin didn't have the burden of being an idol. Secondly, they weren't the main characters tonight. Moreover, even if he really found a suitable Han costume, Super Chin felt that the upper body effect was far worse than Wang Ling's. That flying to the moon through the clouds was really too imaginative. When Wang Ling had come out of the changing room earlier, even Super Chin had been staring at it. In essence, people would always cast their eyes on beautiful things without hesitation. Even a straight man like him had fallen for it, so it wasn't hard to understand why the girls who took out their phones to take pictures would behave in such a rude manner. So, in the locker room, he and Hero Guo had already come to a decision. Later, when they were watching the fountain show, he would find an excuse to slip away and leave the scene to Boss Sun. There were many people looking at the fountain. With so many eyes, it wouldn't be unusual for them to get separated from the crowd. At that moment, Wang Ling sighed in his heart. He knew it. These two traitors couldn't be relied on. About 3 minutes later, Lotus Sun's voice suddenly rang out. Sorry to have kept everyone waiting. The girl was wearing a dark blue Han costume with a sparkling blue top and a spotless white skirt that was like a bright moon in a calm lake. Everything perfectly reflected the original name of this Han costume, Bright Moon Glass. Super Chin and Hero Guo's eyes were glazed. At that moment, they felt that Lotus Sun was like Lu Li who had walked out of a painting, causing their emotions to ripple slightly at first before swiftly sinking into a kind of tranquility. It gave off the sense of time stopping and the beauty of life. How is it? Doesn't look good, does it? Lotus Sun had a round bright moon fan in her hand. This was a small accessory that went with the Han costume. The actress shyly hid her expression as she stared fixedly at the youngster in white in front of her. Wang Ling's expression, however, didn't show much surprise, because he could actually imagine Lotus Sun in a Han costume. Clothes made the man, and clothes could indeed give a person a completely different kind of spirit, but the most important thing was that a person had to be good-looking. When a person's good looks had already reached saturation, they would still be saturation even if they changed their clothes. So Wang Ling didn't know how to evaluate her. On the other hand, Hero Guo and Super Chin sighed endlessly from the bottom of their hearts. Wang Ling, aren't you going to say something? Seeing that Wang Ling hadn't replied for a long time, Li Yue was a little anxious. She cleared her throat and lectured him in the tone of an elder sister. When a girl needs to be evaluated, you should. That's the most basic courtesy. Somehow Wang Ling felt that this segment was a little like a survival test. In any case, it was a compliment. He didn't know how to say it, but he did know some truth. At that moment, Wang Ling looked at the girl and said, "She's pretty to begin with." This was indeed what Wang Ling thought was the truth, but when he said it, Lotus Sun's face instantly turned scalding hot. She hadn't expected Wang Ling to actually say this. In a split second, the girl felt as if her heart had been ruthlessly struck by something, and she immediately used the round fan to cover her shy face. Li Yue saw that the back of the fan seemed to be smoking. "Are you satisfied now?" She moved her face closer and whispered to Steam Beauty behind the fan. The girl's face couldn't help turning even redder. Then Li Yue turned her gaze to Wang Ling. The youngster in front of her had a calm and unperturbed expression on his face. Crossing her arms, Li Yue felt a little gloomy, and suddenly felt that Wang Ling's wooden nature was hopeless. She muttered helplessly in her heart, "So, he really doesn't know that he's very seductive." After everyone had changed, it was time to enjoy the night fountain show. The Dragon Spring Fountain on Ancient Street was very famous and had been around for a long time. It had been built by an emperor in the old era to please his beloved concubine. The entire fountain was the size of 2 basketball courts, and had a total of 88 bronze dragon heads, which was why it was called Dragon Spring. As for the fountain's water source, it was drawn from Dragon Tooth Mountain on the side. This was a huge project, and had once been regarded as a symbol of the emperor exploiting the working people at the bottom of the hierarchy. But at some point, the Dragon Spring on Ancient Cultivation Cultural Street had become an internet sensation. Even the story had changed. It had become a wonderful and touching love story between an infatuated emperor and a pure concubine. With this change, Dragon Spring had instantly become a famous tourist attraction. Touching the dragon head, tossing a coin, and praying for blessings by the fountain had practically become an essential part of the fountain show. I've prepared some coins. Everyone make a wish before the fountain show starts, Li Yue said at that moment. She distributed the 1 yuan coins to everyone one by one. Wang Ling imitated the passers-by on the side, and first touched the bronze dragon head next to the fountain. In the end, when he touched it, he realized that his dragon head wasn't the same as the one next to it, because the dragon horn of the dragon head he touched had already been rubbed flat. It was okay that it had been touched bald, Wang Ling sighed in his heart. He just touched it lightly, and then set up a timed repair spell for the dragon head he had touched. Since he was able to touch the dragon head, it was fate for this dragon head. Wang Ling felt that he had done a good deed by fixing it. After setting up the timed repair spell, everything was set. When no one was paying attention to the dragon head, its dragon horn would grow out while no one was looking. Then Wang Ling imitated the others and gently dropped the coin into the fountain. He didn't dare directly toss the coin like some people. If he used too much force, the coin would be as powerful as a nuclear torpedo. Then it was time to close their eyes and make a wish. Wish. The sound of a clear spring. Super Chin made rapid progress. He made a wish and shouted at the same time, startling the people nearby. When all was said and done, he was a veteran player of 10 years of toxic milk powder. On the side, Hero Guo laughed. This was a game meme that only those who understood would understand. Then he also closed his eyes and started his own wish. Looking at the pious expressions on the faces of the people around him, Wang Ling pondered his own wish. Actually, there were times when people just made a wish to give themselves psychological comfort so that they could put down their burdens and move on. There were actually a lot of rumors about the efficacy of the Dragon Spring. Wang Ling wasn't sure whether they were true or not. After all, businesses nowadays would do anything to hype up tourist attractions. Fabricating a beautiful fairy tale-like story was already considered kind. A while ago, a scenic spot called Sky Realm had appeared, which was claimed to be the first in the country and had been produced at a huge cost. The Sky Realm, in the promotional poster for the scenic spot, was a combination of blue sky and white clouds that looked like a dream. But in reality, the real classic was just a few mirrors covered in muddy shoe prints on a pond. This was the real difference between a buyer's show and a seller's show. But whether it was useful or not, when it came to making a wish, it was better to believe it was real. You still had to have a dream. What if it came true? And so Wang Ling closed his eyes. And he didn't open them for a long time. The main thing was that he had a lot of wishes. Classmate Wang Ling, you must be wishing to eat crispy noodle snacks with different flavors, right? Looking at the earnest expression on the youngster's face with his eyes closed, Lotus Sun smiled sweetly. Then she also closed her eyes and piously made her wish to the Dragon Spring. Her wish was, no matter what Wang Ling wished for, it would come true, just in time. On the other side, Audiobook and Jianghu also arrived at the scene. They had also changed into traditional Chinese clothes and were here. What was worth ridiculing was that they were wearing the same style. They had both chosen the traditional Chinese clothes called Purple Gold Galaxy. Jianghu Ryoko had chosen the traditional Chinese clothes in the changing room, and hadn't gone through with Audiobook earlier. Even under these circumstances, it was still a coincidence. The pattern and pattern of the male version of the Purple Gold Galaxy were different from the female version. However, the highly similar color scheme made them look like a couple when they stood next to each other. Was it a coincidence? Of course not. There were so many styles of traditional Chinese clothes. How could they possibly choose the same one? It was just that Audiobook had asked a good brother to help him ask around when Jianghu Ryoko was choosing her clothes. Of course, Audiobook couldn't expose such a small trick. As soon as he came out, he had a flabbergasted expression on his face as he lamented that his and Jianghu Ryoko's train of thought were similar, and even embellished the story with phrases like, a match made in heaven, and a telepathic connection. This had directly caused the girl's face to flush red until now. Of course, in this case, she just needed to change into a new set of traditional Chinese clothes. But Jianghu Ryoko felt that since there was nothing between them, there was no need to hide it too much, and it was better to be more open. To be honest, she didn't know why she had thought of that magical logic at that time. It wasn't until she was wearing the same style of traditional Chinese clothes as Audiobook on the street that Jianghu Ryoko wanted to slap herself. I'm telling you, don't get too close to me, it's too easy for people to misunderstand. Jianghu Ryoko muttered by the fountain. There was a hubbub of voices nearby, but it was very easy for Audiobook to distinguish Jianghu Ryoko's voice among them. But he deliberately pretended not to hear her, and just smiled at the girl in front of him. What? He was a little taller than Jianghu, and from this angle this girl's slightly soft and cute voice was like a cat's paw, tickling Ajua's heart. I'm telling you, don't get too close to me, otherwise people will misunderstand. Jianghu Ryoko tried to speak a little louder. What? You want me to get closer to you? Shameless. The corners of Jianghu Ryoko's mouth twitched. She was sure that Ajua had heard her 100%, and was definitely teasing her. The girl clenched her fists with all her might, trying not to flare up. Then she straightaway stood on tiptoe, intending to speak directly into Ajua's ear. At this distance, this old liar would definitely hear her. But what Jianghu Ryoko didn't expect was that just as she stood on tiptoe, Ajua also lowered his head, intending to fish out a coin from his pocket. At this moment, the foreheads of the two of them lightly touched each other. In an instant, Jianghu Ryoko blushed beyond belief. She abruptly turned her back on Ajua. What's wrong? No, nothing. Am I too close? Forget it, there are too many people. Let's just do this. After saying that, the girl added, when there are fewer people, stay away from me immediately. Got it? Got it. Ajua smiled dotingly. Chapter 1478. At 8:30 that evening, the Dragon Spring in the central square of Old Street started its dreamlike fountain show on time. 88 dragon heads slowly raised their heads in front of everyone's eyes, and many people who were watching the Dragon Spring for the first time were amazed. This was one of the famous scenes before the start of the Dragon Spring fountain show, also known as the dragon raising its head. But it wasn't modified by modern technology, but by exquisite ancient craftsmanship. In the old era, to be able to develop such a high-tech fountain through mechanical design, it could only be said that the engineer who had built the Dragon Spring back then, he was indeed an extraordinary talent. However, there was still no definite answer to the question of who the creator of the Dragon Spring belonged to, and history experts debated endlessly. But there was one point of view that was unified. And that was that these history experts still believed that the descendants of the creator of the Dragon Spring must still be in this world. The splendid lights, combined with the beautiful spray of water from the copper dragon heads combined with classical music, formed a fine seven-colored mist in the air, giving people the illusion that they were in an illusory world. Countless columns of water towered into the clouds, sometimes domineering and magnificent, sometimes graceful, sometimes light and lively, and sometimes ringing like a great bell. All kinds of changes stirred the hearts of the onlookers. For a moment, the couples by the fountain embraced each other, and everyone tacitly quieted down as they quietly watched the fountain show in front of them. Looking around, Ryoko Kyuko suddenly realized that the scene seemed a little awkward. Next to her, the couples were almost all hugging each other, which made Ryoko's face darken. It was just watching a fountain. Was that necessary? It wasn't like they were on the Titanic. If they wanted to nibble, why didn't they do it in bed? You don't look very happy? Do you want a hug? Ajua's voice sounded at that moment. How am I unhappy? Ryoko said. Also, you were clearly behind me. How could you have seen my expression? I could tell from your aura, Ajua said. That's the benefit of having a high cultivation level. Don't be too pleased with yourself, old liar. I'm still suspicious of you, the girl said. Do you think it's possible to cultivate to my level of fighting strength in 6 years? Ajua smiled with a relaxed expression on his face. What if you have a fortuitous encounter? Who knows? Ryoko Kwamiya pouted and snorted. So now you're avoiding my question? Ajua asked. What problem? Ryoko Kamiya pretended not to know. I asked you just now if you wanted a hug? Ajua stepped forward. Don't move. Sensing that Ajua's aura was getting closer, Ryoko instantly panicked a little. With a red face, she warned him in her own way, don't come near me. I really will be angry. Alright, I understand. Ajua stepped back and raised his hands in surrender. Sigh, as expected of Yoshiko, even when she was angry she was still so cute. As the saying went, haste makes waste. Ajua had plenty of patience for this. I've mentioned it before. Know when to relax. This was Ajua's first love rule for Ryoko Kamiya. At that moment, Ajua turned his gaze to the other side. But when he saw that Wang Ling's eyes were still closed, he was stunned. This wish was perhaps a little too long, but very quickly he realized what on earth was going on. It must be because the surrounding couples were hugging each other, causing Master to fall into an awkward situation. And the worst thing was, Even Lotus-san seemed to be surrounded by people. The two of them weren't far from each other, but there were couples all around them, and they were sandwiched in the middle like a game of Go. It was very obvious that Hirogwa, Super Chin and Liyue had retreated in time, leaving the space for the two of them. But they had underestimated the number of couples around Longquan. The situation doesn't look good. I have to think of something. He had come to the old street this time mainly because he had been ordered by Wang Ling to help them out. Although he was flirting with Ryoko Kamiya, he still hadn't forgotten the task Shifu had given him. He could only go over first. Ajwa himself wasn't afraid of embarrassment. He then took the initiative to walk in Wang Ling's direction. Sensing that Ajwa's aura was getting farther away, Ryoko hurriedly asked, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to the bathroom. Do you want to follow me?" "Who wants to follow you?" The girl snorted. Out of the corner of her eye, she looked in the direction Ajwa was leaving in, and her intuition told her that things weren't that simple. So, should she follow him and take a look? Ryoko was conflicted. She took about 3 seconds to think and finally took a step forward. Of course, where this guy was going had nothing to do with her. But wasn't it normal for an employer to supervise a bodyguard's work? Thinking this, the girl seemed emboldened, and she began to move forward bravely. Her steps were firm and confident. At the same time, eldest Miss Sun, who was trapped among the couples, was troubled by the situation in front of her. As soon as the fountain show started, the couples nearby had all swarmed forward to get a better look, and had instantly separated her and Wang Ling. She was now surrounded by couples, and although she could sense Wang Ling's aura not far away from her, the situation was still very awkward. And most importantly, almost all the couples around her had started to nibble at each other's cheeks. The impact of this scene was undoubtedly a critical blow to a girl in unrequited love, and most importantly, she couldn't choose this moment to disturb others as that would be too rude. "Sorry, please excuse me." At that moment, a familiar voice rang out. It was as if she had heard the voice of her savior. She saw Ajwa coming toward her and greeting the couple in front of him who were nibbling at each other's necks. The couple looked very unhappy at being disturbed. The man was a big guy with a tattoo on his arm, and he had an unhappy expression on his face. "Who are you?" "Sorry, I just wanted to excuse you. My junior sister got separated inside," Ajwa said very politely. "School-style role-playing, how interesting." The tattooed man chuckled. "Bro, where did you find this student? Introduce her to me." "Don't you already have a girlfriend?" Ajwa frowned, feeling a little uncomfortable. It wasn't just him. When the people nearby heard this tattooed man's words, they all stopped what they were doing and looked over one after another. This was too scummy. "It's a consensual thing, it's just for fun. My partner never minded." Saying this, the tattooed man lifted his girlfriend's chin, a fierce light in his eyes. "Isn't that right, HM?" The girl lowered her head, not daring to look him in the eye. Ajwa could clearly sense that she was afraid. Perhaps even the matter of becoming her girlfriend had been one-sidedly coerced by the other party? Ajwa didn't have any proof of this, so he didn't care, but the man in front of him was really hateful. Unfortunately, this was a public place and it wasn't convenient for Ajwa to make a move. After all, he was still a public official. Although the other party was hateful, if he made a move here and someone filmed it and posted it online, who knew what kind of trouble it would cause? "Sorry, excuse me." At that moment he heard Lotus-san's voice. Because of Ajwa's intervention, the couples around them stopped what they were doing and turned their gazes over to watch the show. Lotus-san hurriedly seized the opportunity to circle around to Ajwa's side from another direction. Ajwa hadn't expected that his goal would actually be achieved just like that. He had wanted to go over and pull the girl out, but hadn't expected to indirectly resolve the situation instead. Lotus-san had heard what the tattooed man had said earlier. As a girl, she was naturally very unhappy. She stared at the tattooed man and tried hard to restrain the sword chi that was ready to burst out of her. "You'd better correct your attitude." "What? Is this the junior sister you were talking about?" The tattooed man was amused and looked at Ajwa. "She's not bad looking like an idol star? How much for a night?" When he said this, a lot of people nearby felt a surge of anger in their hearts. Quite a few boys in the crowd had already rolled up their sleeves and were ready to gang up on him. Then he plopped down on a certain bronze dragon head that had been touched bald and sneered. "Today I'll be sitting here. I want to see who dares make a move on me." The tattooed man had a high and mighty attitude. As he sat, he pulled his girlfriend to him and held her tightly with one arm. It seemed to be a threat, and many of the young men who wanted to step forward and beat him up hesitated. They were worried that if they pushed too hard, this scumbag might hurt the girl. He's really too arrogant. This is too much, that girl must have been coerced. Should we call the police? But he hasn't done anything yet, there's no point in calling the police, right? Hey, is there no one who can come out and punish this scumbag? The girls around them were also very angry, and then they closed their eyes and started to make wishes to the dragon spring. Then, in the next moment, the tattooed man screamed like a pig being slaughtered. What was going on? One by one, the girls who had been making wishes opened their eyes. The tattooed man, who had been so smug earlier, had fallen down in front of the dragon spring, clutching his butt. 2 bloody holes had appeared in his butt from the dragon head's horns. What the hell? Everyone's eyes were filled with horror. The originally bald dragon head had actually grown horns again. It must be classmate Wang Ling. Lotus Sun instantly understood something. With a smile on her face, she instantly felt much better. As expected of Shifu, Audiobook couldn't help laughing. He then gently tugged at the corner of Lotus Sun's Hanfu and said in a low voice, "Junior Lotus Sun, there are too many people here. Shifu has already gone out. I think he has something for you." "Wang Ling, he wants to give me a present?" The girl was pleasantly surprised. "You'll know when you go out and take a look. Let's go." Audiobook smiled, then took the girl's hand, intending to lead her to where Wang Ling was. This scene was witnessed by Kuya Ryoko. Chapter 1479. The tattooed man's situation was even worse than everyone had imagined. The dragon horn was a little long, and it had directly pierced through his butt. Furthermore, the angle at which the dragon horn had grown was too tricky. Everyone couldn't help sighing in their hearts. This was probably the legendary ball wheel burst. The originally bald dragon head suddenly grew 2 pairs of horns as it punished the scumbag in front of everyone. Such a scene could not be said not to be gratifying. A lot of people at the scene were alarmed by this miraculous phenomenon. A lot of materialists didn't believe in making wishes to begin with, but after seeing this scene with their own eyes, they all threw their coins at the dragon spring and piously made wishes. And so, the second wish ceremony began. The scene was dead silent. Everyone put their palms together, faced the dragon spring and closed their eyes to pray. But no one called an ambulance. The tattooed man lay on the ground with his butt sticking out in the air. His face was pale from the pain, but he already had no energy left to speak. As for the girl he had coerced into becoming his girlfriend, she had already left the scene. The dragon horn had pierced the tattooed man's butt. Although Wang Ling had cast the spell, it really hadn't been calculated in advance, and was purely an accident. Evil people would be tormented by evil people and retribution would come sooner or later, so sometimes, people shouldn't have no bottom line. On the other side, Ryoko Q's resentment had already begun to spread. It turned out that a woman's sixth sense was really scary. Moreover, Ryoko's sixth sense was innately accurate. At the same time, it was a label that Audiobook had always ignored. An indescribable anger welled up in Ryoko's heart. Sure enough, a leopard couldn't change its spots. An old liar was still an old liar. What happened to going to the washroom? Why had she come to this place? Furthermore, she was actually holding the hand of Lotus Sun, whom she had always regarded as her rival. Ryoko did her best to calm down because if she looked angry now, it would mean that she actually cared a lot. She didn't want to show an expression of menstruation disorder in front of this old liar. Thus, her eyes narrowed slightly, and she used the round fan in her hand as a cover as she stealthily followed Audiobook from behind. As the saying went, catch someone dirty, catch adultery. No, strictly speaking, this didn't seem to count as catching adultery. This time they were just looking for evidence that Audiobook had left his post without permission. As a bodyguard, he actually used the excuse of going to the washroom as an excuse to cheat on someone else. This was too much. Audiobook held Lotus Sun's hand all the way until they were out of the crowd. There were too many people, so bringing a girl along was actually a gentlemanly behavior. The main thing was that they were already very familiar with each other, so they didn't have any strange ideas or thoughts about each other. Of course, that was if Wang Ling was the one holding her. That would be different. This short 10-some-meter walk away from the crowd was enough for Lotus Sun to conjure up a 100,000-word romance novel. Senior Audiobook, don't you feel a little cold? As they walked, Lotus Sun suddenly felt that something wasn't right. I really didn't expect there to be so many people today. It's probably because he left the crowd. Audiobook said. It was mainly because they had just been watching the fountain show inside. The crowd was crowded together and it was indeed a little stuffy. Come with me, Shifu is still there, said Audiobook. He had nothing else on his mind now, and just wanted to bring his Shifu over as soon as possible, and then quickly return to Kuya Ryoko's side. The direction they were heading in actually happened to be in the direction of the washroom. Ajwa had calculated the time it would take to get there and back. It was a pity that the incident with the tattooed man had delayed them a little. Otherwise he would have brought the girl there long ago. As the two of them moved forward, Kuya Ryoko stealthily followed them. She knew that Ajwa could sense her aura, so she didn't dare get too close, and just observed what was going on in front of her from a distance. Halfway there, Lotus Sun suddenly stopped. "Senior Ajwa, did you hear something? I think I heard someone talking about me." "No way." Then Ajwa also paused. "It's coming from the southeast." Lotus Sun frowned slightly. Carefully distinguishing the sound, he finally confirmed its direction. It was coming from 2nd Street, the ancient Cultivation cultural street. Moreover, the voice was clearly coming from a mobile phone. It was a person communicating with the person on the other side of the phone. "When on earth can we send the blackmail letter?" "There's no hurry. Eldest Miss Sun is a valuable hostage. Keep an eye on her, we'll be there soon. I wonder how much Huagua Water Curtain Group is willing to pay to ransom her, hee. What about this guy who was caught with us? Did you see his face?" "Yes." At that moment, the voice of the person on the other end of the phone suddenly turned gloomy. "There's no other way. Find someone to take him to a deserted place and kill him. Make sure he's clean." "Got it?" That was the end of the call. I've been caught?" Both Lotus Sun and Ajwa were baffled. The kidnappers of unknown origin hadn't expected Lotus Sun, who was standing several hundred meters away, to hear their conversation loud and clear. Amplifying one's hearing was actually very uncomfortable, because all kinds of sounds entered one's ears. In fact, it was an instinctive reflex. The girl had heard the term eldest Miss Sun many times, so she naturally reacted. At first, she thought that someone was talking about her, and out of curiosity she amplified her hearing. In the end, after some probing, Lotus Sun realized that she seemed to have learned something incredible. Frowning, Ajwa suddenly thought of something. "I think they might have caught the wrong person." "That's right. It's classmate Jiang." Lotus Sun quickly understood. "Classmate Jiang does look a little like me, then there's no mistaking it." At that moment, Ajwa opened his eyes. "I know. Classmate Jiang brought brother Weiji here today, but their auras have already disappeared. They've probably been locked up somewhere by these kidnappers." "Then what do we do now?" Lotus Sun was a little anxious. "There's no other way. Junior Lotus Sun, hurry and meet Shifu." "Leave this matter to me," Ajwa said at that moment. The situation was critical and he was about to move when the girl pulled him back. "Senior, wait. Do you have something to tell me?" "I think I should handle this matter," Lotus Sun said. She actually didn't like Jiang Yingying very much because she kept trying to get close to Wang Ling. But if she put Jiang Yingying in danger, that wasn't what Lotus Sun wanted to see. Since this group of kidnappers had been after her from the beginning, as long as she went over, maybe they would give up on hurting Jiang Yingying and Weiji. In any case, these kidnappers probably couldn't hurt her. After a few seconds of silence, Ajwa finally respected the girl's opinion. "Very well, then be careful, junior sister. I'll leave classmate Jiang Yingying to you. I'll explain the situation to Shifu. I'll be back soon." Lotus Sun nodded, then quickly ran in the direction she had heard earlier. When Ajwa came back to his senses, there was only the alluring figure of a young girl left in front of him. But at that moment, he noticed that the air around him seemed to have turned colder. Behind him, Kamiya Ryoko secretly narrowed her eyes as she watched him from a distance. The hidden bitterness emitted from it was so cold that no one dared to get close to it. Kamiya Ryoko didn't know whether this little friend had a lot of questions. But right now, there were indeed a lot of questions. She wanted to know who on earth that Jiang Yingying was. Listening to Ajwa's tone and how he called her a classmate, she should also be a girl studying at number 60 high school? A liar was still a liar. While watching the fountain show, he had actually hooked up with 3 junior sisters in a row. Shameless. Big liar. At that moment, Kamiya Ryoko finally couldn't take it anymore and shouted angrily at Ajwa's back in the distance. Chapter 1480. This roar startled countless gazes on the old street and turned towards Komiya Yoshiko. The girl was so angry that her breasts bulged, even though she didn't have breasts that could rise and fall. Ajwa had never seen Jimiya Ryoko so angry. She must have roared with all her might. Perhaps to Jimiya Ryoko, the lethality of this roar was as shocking as a battlefield roar. But Ajwa wasn't afraid at all. Yoshiko was so cute that he liked her even when she roared. But Ajwa had miscalculated when Kamiya Yoshiko caught up with him. He was too focused on helping his master out of trouble and guiding his mistress to meet up with his master. Due to a moment of carelessness, he didn't even notice that he was being followed. Although he wasn't afraid of the girl's roar, when he saw the tears in the corners of Kamiya Ryoko's eyes, his expression instantly turned serious. From the looks of it, the problem was rather serious. This little girl is really angry. Sighing silently in her heart, Ryoko Kamiya turned around and ran in the opposite direction. Seeing this, Ajwa dashed forward to give chase. Jiogong! He shouted as he ran, not because he was afraid of anything, but because he was worried that the girl would hurt herself in the crowd. As he chased after the girl, for some reason, Ajwa felt a sense of déjà vu from a TV series. There seemed to be such a chase scene in many youth blockbusters. It was just that Ajwa hadn't expected that when his youth had already expired, he would still have to chase after a girl in front of so many people. Thus, in the next 20 minutes, as Ajwa chased after her, Kamiya Ryoko ran at the same time. He could catch up with her, but he was afraid that if he ran too hard, he would hurt her. After chasing for a full 8 streets, from the 2nd Street to the 10th Street area, the girl in front of him finally stopped. Because Kamiya Ryoko suddenly realized a problem. That was, even though Ajwa's realm was higher than his, there was still a huge gap between their physical abilities. That was to say, if she continued to run, she would run out of strength, and Ajwa would catch up to her sooner or later. Only God knew if this old liar would do something strange when his physical strength was damaged. In fact, after running for so long, Ryoko had calmed down a lot. Because in essence, she and Ajwa only had an employer-employee relationship. Even if this old liar had a messy private life, it had nothing to do with him. As the employer, the most she could do was condemn this kind of behavior from a moral point of view. "Classmate Jiogong, you're not running anymore?" Ajwa asked with a smile. He chased all the way to 10th Street and there were significantly fewer people around. The closest witness to them was a fruit stall owner who was nibbling on a watermelon. To be honest, Ajwa hadn't expected a girl with such a flat chest to actually be able to run so fast. From a fluid dynamics perspective, the streamline of a flat chest wasn't outstanding, so it should have increased air resistance. But after thinking about it, he instantly understood. Perhaps it was because it was too flat, causing the quality to decrease. Under normal circumstances, Ajwa would definitely use this as a joke, but now clearly wasn't the time. The girl in front of him didn't seem so angry anymore, but Ajwa still sensed a hateful gaze from Kamiya Ryoko, just like when she had come to the headmaster's office to question him a few days ago. Ryoko Kamiya crossed her arms, and her voice reverted to that of a cold young lady. "Junior son, Junior Jiang? How many junior sisters do you have?" Hearing this, Ajwa actually wanted to laugh a little in his heart, because the smell of jealousy was really too strong. But the girl in front of him didn't seem to realize it. Why did he like this girl so much? "I think classmate Kamiya must have misunderstood something," Ajwa said. "I used the excuse of going to the washroom to look for junior sister Lotus Sun on the way. But at the time, junior sister Lotus Sun was squeezed among the couples and looked very troubled. That's why she asked me to do her a little favor and bring her out. The people on the side were all kissing, and girls are shy and didn't want to disturb them." "This is also to return a favor? For the election?" Kamiya Ryoko snorted. "Yes, it's to return a favor, but it's actually a favor from classmate Kamiya," Ajwa said. As an excellent planner, he had naturally been looking for a way to make the two of them work together after learning that the relationship between his Shifu and Kamiya Ryoko wasn't very harmonious. In fact, as he had been running just now, Ajwa had indeed thought of a brilliant plan. "I owe her a favor? Are you kidding me?" Kamiya Ryoko had an incredulous expression on her face. "I actually asked junior sister Lotus Sun to use her family's power to arrange the rooms for Ah Wei and the other two, as well as the witness protection plan," Ajwa said. Of course, this explanation was different from the actual situation, but when you thought about it carefully, there was nothing wrong with it. This hotel was originally a property of Huagua Water Curtain Group, so the implementation of the witness protection plan was inextricably linked to Huagua Water Curtain Group. This was an unassailable reason. Even if Kamiya Ryoko investigated it later, the conclusion she would reach would be the same. While he had been chasing the girl, Ajwa had already written a text message to Lotus Sun, and had been prepared in advance to collude with her in case the cat was out of the bag. Although she was skeptical about this answer, Kamiya Ryoko felt a lot more comfortable. "Did I say I wanted her help?" Ajwa looked at her with a firm gaze and said, so I'll do everything for her. I begged her for a long time, for you. Kamiya Ryoko flushed. Spineless. You can investigate what I said later. Are you satisfied now? It's getting late, go back and get some rest, Ajwa said. Wait. There's still another junior sister you haven't told me. Who on earth is that Jianghu? So there's something classmate Kamiya doesn't know? Ajwa said, according to the clues I just received, classmate Jianghu has been kidnapped. But in fact, this group of people came for junior sister Lotus Sun. How could it be wrong? At first glance, classmate Jianghu and junior sister Lotus Sun do look a little alike. Junior sister Lotus Sun is now using her family's power to negotiate with the kidnappers, Ajwa said. He realized that the term family's power was really useful and could perfectly explain a lot of things. So that's how it is. Kamiya Ryoko frowned and looked very concerned. Then how is Lotus Sun? Are you worried? Who's worried about her? I just want to return the favor. Now that the matter had been cleared up, Kamiya Ryoko's mood had already returned to normal. She snorted like a proud black swan as she strolled in the direction of the hotel. Then go back. As the employer, I'll give you special permission to pay more attention to the kidnappers tonight. Yes. Ajwa held back his laughter. Before leaving, he glanced at the fruit stall on the side of the road. Do you want to buy some fruit? Kamiya Ryoko glanced at the fruits on the stall and said disinterestedly, you decide. She actually had an idea. She mainly wanted to see if Ajwa's favorite fruit was the same as hers. Then durian. Ajwa cupped his chin and thought seriously for a moment before he said this. He didn't know that this might be the worst decision he had ever made in his life. Chapter 1481. Hearing the word durian, Kamiya Ryoko's expression brightened. You like durians too? To be honest, the girl was a little touched. After all, a lot of the people around her thought that durians were very smelly, and even the servants usually hid far away when she ate them. She hadn't expected Ajwa to have the same thoughts as her, and also like to eat durians. Isn't durian the most fragrant fruit in the world? At that moment, he looked at the girl with a smile in his eyes. Kamiya Ryoko's eyes instantly lit up, although it was just a flash. It was already very rare for this rare expression to appear on Kamiya Ryoko's face. How much is this durian? Ajwa asked the melon-eating stall owner as he crouched down. At the same time, he looked around and carefully picked out what he wanted. He realized that this fruit stall was not only down to earth, but also very rich in variety. There were even several different kinds of durians. Strange, can you set up stalls casually in your country? The girl asked curiously at that moment. The melon-eating stall owner put his hands on his hips and wiped the watermelon juice off his mouth with a handkerchief as he smiled honestly. Little girl, you don't understand. This is called the stall economy. Now it's very helpful for people's livelihood. But you have to pay attention to the cleanliness of the stall, and take the trash with you when you leave. I see. Kamiya Ryoko nodded. Cultural differences weren't actually scary. What was more important was respect and understanding. Kamiya Ryoko had been longing for a country with a long history and culture like Wuxia Nation since she was a child. One person's life was just a drop in the ocean compared to the long river of a country's history. Wuxia Nation's rich cultivation culture was one of the reasons why it had always attracted cultivators from all over the world to visit, travel, and learn. I know this is an ordinary durian, but what's that red durian? Ajwa suddenly asked at that moment. That's a new product, full name Flame Durian. It tastes a little sweet and spicy. Sweet and spicy? How can it taste good? I don't know if it tastes good, but it does sell very well. The melon-eating stall owner looked at Ajwa and took the initiative to tell him the truth. Actually, a lot of people buy this flame durian to kneel for their men at home. If they break the skin on their knees while kneeling, the spiciness of the flame durian will directly penetrate their skin. I see. Ajwa smiled. Then it's fine. The main thing is that I've never tried this new item before, so I'll just have a normal one and a new one. Just pick the biggest and freshest one for me. All right. With a shout, the stall owner skillfully packed up the items for Ajwa to take back. On the way, Kamiya Ryoko suddenly thought of something. She looked at Ajwa and asked, well, you should be able to split a durian with your bare hands, right? Of course. Ajwa laughed. Furthermore, this was in front of Kamiya Yoshiko, which made him seem a little light-hearted. Given my current fighting strength, I can do more than split it with my bare hands. When I get back, I'll kneel for you. You can break a durian? Ryoko raised her eyebrows. Of course. Audiobook was very pleased with himself. Little did he know that this was probably the second wrong decision he had made in his life. Elsewhere, Lotus Sun, dressed in a blue and white hanfu, was swiftly approaching her destination. Enveloped in the faint moonlight, the young girl looked even more brilliant. She was like Luli under the night sky, her whole body exuded a moving spirituality, and anyone who saw her couldn't help taking a second look. Unfortunately, Wang Ling wasn't by her side now. The young girl could only be beautiful on her own. She was a little anxious. If she couldn't resolve Jiang Yingying's matter, she wouldn't be able to reunite with Wang Ling. It had clearly been so hard for her to find a chance to be alone. At that moment, the difficulties and bitterness in her heart converged into one. It was too hard for her, but this had all started because of her, so she felt that she had to take responsibility. This was the responsibility that every teenager should have. This is the place. This was a dark alley on 2nd Street. It was very narrow and there was only a gap about 10 centimeters wide. There was no way to get out of here through normal means, but the sound just now had indeed come from here. The young girl released her sword chi and used it to magnify her senses to investigate. Sure enough, she found traces of magic on the walls to the left and right of the gap. Is it the paper man spell? She frowned slightly. This was actually a type of bone-shrinking spell, but it was much more difficult to operate. The inspiration for this spell came from the 2D paper men, husbands, wives, and so on that were currently popular on the market among otakus. And so the paper man spell was born. Although Lotus Sun was strong in battle, she was still lacking in the practical application of many spells. She didn't know how to use the paper man spell, she just had some understanding of it. I'll leave it to you, the young girl said at that moment. She needed to directly pass through the gap to take a look. There was a flight ban over the old street, and flying over it on a sword wasn't allowed. Not only would she be fined, it would also be easy for the bandits to notice her. Sun Yinger reacted quickly, and her shadow could easily pass through the gap. After she passed through, she swiftly switched positions with her original body and completed a magnificent heaven and earth great shift. It seems that I still have to study hard from now on. Although she had successfully completed the shifting shadows, the young girl's heart was a lot heavier. Although she was indeed very strong now, most of that had come from Mysterious Sea. There were still areas that she needed to improve, and she absolutely couldn't become arrogant and complacent because of this. There was no end to learning, and as expected, she still had a long way to go. After smoothly passing through the narrow gap, Lotus Sun discovered that the world outside was actually an empty abandoned factory. There was a mottled smell of rust and unpleasant chemicals in the air, which mixed together to irritate the throat and nose. Lotus Sun quickly reacted. She had been tricked. It had seemed to be a trap from the very beginning. The other party had meticulously set it up, deliberately letting her hear that Jiang Yingying had been kidnapped, and then knowing that she would definitely find her way here. Thus, they had set up a transmission channel behind the narrow gap that could quickly change space, allowing Lotus Sun to instantly arrive somewhere else. This wasn't something that ordinary kidnappers could do. At that moment, Lotus Sun frowned deeply and couldn't help but raise her guard. It seemed that these kidnappers were stronger than she had imagined. At that moment, a slightly hollow voice rang out. Sure enough, everything is as that senior predicted. You will definitely fall for the trap and come here, eldest Miss Sun. In the darkness, a burly man about 3 meters tall wearing a black trench coat slowly walked out. He held a large knife in one hand, and in the other was the unconscious Jiang Yingying, who was held up like a little chick. Lotus Sun sensed the aura of this burly kidnapper and felt that his scent was a little strange. You don't seem to be human, the burly man laughed loudly. I underestimated you, Miss Sunday. I didn't expect you to even know this. At that moment, Lotus Sun let out a small sigh of relief. If he wasn't human, this was indeed a great relief. Because killing aliens wasn't illegal. Chapter 1482. After realizing that his identity had been exposed, this burly 3-meter-tall man finally took off his human skin coat. This was a special painted skin that could hide his true form without being discovered. The 6 main Heavenly Dao in Heavenly Court also had the same thing. The human skin coat that Death Heavenly Dao was wearing as number 60 high school's colonel in the mortal world was probably the same as the one this alien was wearing. This was a very powerful disguise that ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to tell. If it wasn't for Mysterious Sea, Lotus Sun might not have sensed anything unusual. The moment the human skin coat was torn off, Two huge silver horns instantly sprouted from the 3-meter-tall monster's scalp. These silver horns were densely covered in whorls and gave off a strange luster as they curled backwards. This was a humanoid extraterrestrial life form with a silver horn, a single eye, a sharp chin, and a strange dark yellow pupil. Its skin was densely covered in scales with a metallic luster. Its 2-meter-long tail was covered in sharp barbs. Looking at the creature's true form, the girl couldn't help feeling a little stunned. This was because the creature's chest was actually transparent, and inside it was something that shone like a crystal. What on earth is this? Even Sun Yinger had never seen such a creature before. After all, she had all the information on the entire void in her mind. The void had a very long history, and it stood to reason that Sun Yinger knew most of those alien creatures, but she had never seen anything like this alien Iron Man. That was right, the more she looked at it, the more she felt that the thing glowing inside the creature's transparent chest was just like Iron Man's energy reactor. Doesn't this venerable one look very mighty and domineering? The silver-horned man opened his mouth. In fact, he didn't really care what she thought. This is Earth, and it's normal for Earthlings to have the same aesthetic standards as the universe's average. Lotus Sun. This was the girl's first time fighting an alien. Because she didn't know what the other party was up to, the girl's expression was especially cautious. But judging from the other party's understanding of her, she could roughly infer that this alien was talking about might be Peng Shiren from a while ago. Lotus Sun remembered that she had witnessed everything the last time she hid in Wang Ling's inner world. It was still vivid in his mind. The young man who had suddenly jumped out to cause trouble had almost been killed by Wang Ling. Later, he thought that he had successfully taken the old Rubik's Cube from Earth and returned to the infinite galaxy. Then, she heard that there seemed to be a huge explosion in the depths of the infinite galaxy. Perhaps Peng Shiren and that sealed creature were both dead. However, judging from the current situation, the other party was not only safe and sound. They even sent narcissistic aliens from the infinite galaxy? I'll just get rid of him. At this moment, Lotus Sun closed her eyes slightly, already planning to summon Mysterious Sea. Although she really wanted to know the relationship between the silver-horned alien and Peng Shiren, it was unrealistic to consider capturing the alien alive in such a situation where human lives were at stake. Because she didn't understand this silver-horned alien at all. Jiang Yingying and Wei Ji's safety came first. The simplest and crudest way to save the two of them was to kill the alien. Miss Sun, I like the look in your eyes. I also admire your courage. You're clearly only at the Foundation establishment stage. In my hometown, you're less than a speck of dust, said the silver-horned creature. Enough nonsense. Lotus Sun frowned. So, you don't even care about your friend's life? The silver-horned creature sneered, completely disregarding the girl in front of him. I promise you if you do anything you'll definitely regret your stupid actions later. The silver-horned creature was very confident, because he knew very well who on earth stood behind him. That was Tao Ancestor Wang's only true disciple. It was also because of Peng Shiren that the alien race, which had originally declined, had collectively completed their evolution and become a higher life form. Peng Shiren had asked him to capture Lotus Sun alive if he could. But because the gap in strength was too obvious, the silver-horned creature was worried that if he took action, this Earth girl who was only at the Foundation establishment stage might directly turn into ashes and die. Using her good friend to threaten her was perhaps the safest and most reliable way to capture her alive. Leave with me and I promise I won't hurt you. You can also save the lives of your two friends. The silver-horned creature laughed. But if you resist, you know the consequences. With your low realm, I'll crush this girl's head the moment you attack. Let's see if you're faster or if I'm faster. Then, can I ask another question? Of course. If you have any other questions, just leave with me and I can answer them, the silver-horned creature said very politely. You should have accomplices, right? Are they also aliens? Lotus Sun asked. The silver-horned man said, in fact, many aliens have come to Earth before. They wear human skin and perfectly hide among humans to carry out their activities. For example, the Scions, the Nachiks, and the Ennead square root. My race has been lying dormant on Earth for a very long time, but they're still in their old forms. I promised them that after completing this mission, I would help them achieve evolution. Hearing this, Lotus Sun sighed inwardly. In fact, she hadn't wanted to know that much at all, and she didn't know if it was because she was overly confident in herself and wanted to show off. Sometimes, those who thought that they were strong liked to talk a lot of nonsense before a battle, spilling out some inexplicable information. Perhaps this kind of person really felt that the opponent they were facing posed no threat at all? So there was no harm in saying a little more. Alright, thank you for your information. And welcome to Earth. At this moment, Lotus Sun gazed at the silver-horned creature in front of her and smiled. Human lives were at stake and there was no time to lose. The silver-horned creature had thought that the girl in front of him had completely given up. Just as he was feeling relieved, he saw her suddenly summon an azure spirit sword. 10% alluring sword and, she didn't draw the sword directly but just flicked the sheath with her thumb, revealing a small crack. Buzz. In the blink of an eye, a sliver of mysterious sea sword chi seeped out from this crack. The power of the alluring sword was too great, and this was the sword chi that the girl had used in combination with the actual situation. It should be enough to deal with the silver-horned creature in front of her. You're courting death. The silver-horned creature hadn't expected the girl in front of him to be so stubborn. He flew into a rage out of humiliation, and killing intent radiated from his single yellow eye. At the same time he was exerting force in his hand. If Lotus Sun dared to make a move, he would immediately crush the head of this girl surnamed Jianghu. The silver-horned creature was a man of his word. But at this moment, a strand of blue sword chi as thin as a gossamer thread pierced through his chest. The silver-horned creature stared in disbelief at this scene. Mysterious Sea's azure sword chi had pierced through his chest, and along his chest, his entire body was rapidly freezing. 10% alluring sword, and absolute zero. This was a powerful control-type ability that Mysterious Sea had recently comprehended. It was to ensure that the concentrated sword chi wouldn't be able to deal a fatal blow, and at the same time, provide a second layer of insurance. Anyone hit by Mysterious Sea's absolute zero sword chi would instantly freeze up just like this. Slash. An aura as boundless as the ocean emanated from Lotus Sun's body. She still didn't draw the sheath, but stepped forward and easily cut off the silver-horned creature's right arm that was holding Jiang Yingying with just the sheath. Then she cut off the silver-horned creature's head. She didn't make any unnecessary movements, but the girl who had stepped forward in her traditional Han dress was still the most dazzling firework of the night. Everything was finally over. Then Lotus Sun freed Jiang Yingying from the silver-horned creature's severed right arm, and then checked her vital signs. Her heartbeat was stable and her pulse was normal, but there was some knockout drug in her blood. Combined with the fact that Jiang Yingying had been caught and brought here wearing only a nightgown, she must have been drugged and brought here by those aliens when she was about to get an essential oil massage in the hotel. Fortunately, she's fine. Lotus Sun secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then she went to look for Weiji. Unfortunately, Weiji wasn't in good condition. She had found him in a corner of this abandoned factory. His face was deathly pale and his whole body had stiffened. He had been dead for at least 2 hours. Lotus Sun had no idea that Weiji had already been killed. How could this be? She immediately split off Mysterious Sea's healing sword chi to treat him. But unfortunately it was all in vain. AI, there's nothing we can do now that he's dead. No matter how strong Mysterious Sea's healing sword chi is, it can't save someone who's been dead for 2 hours. Sun Yinger comforted her on the side. Unless there's something more powerful than Mysterious Sea's healing sword chi, Ling Jinren is probably the only one who can do it. Classmate Wang Ling, at that moment Lotus Sun suddenly thought of something. That's right. I still have this. That's the only way. I can definitely do it. Sun Yinger saw Lotus Sun fumble around in Mysterious Sea sword spirit space with her eyes closed. Finally, when she opened her hand, a white rabbit creamy candy appeared in it. Didn't you have insurance? Sun Yinger was blank. When you were dragged out by President Ying for training and weren't by my side, classmate Wang Ling gave me another one. Lotus Sun said. Without the slightest hesitation, she directly unwrapped the candy and stuffed it into Wei Ji's mouth. Buzz, a warm golden light surged out of Wei Ji's body. In less than 5 seconds, she sensed that Wei Ji's aura had returned. It worked. At that moment, Lotus Sun felt a weight lift off her shoulders. If Wei Ji died just like that because of her, she would definitely feel guilty for the rest of her life. Classmate Wang Ling, I owe you another favor. The girl's face broke into a smile. At this moment, Wei Ji successfully opened his eyes. Ugh, he felt like he had had a nightmare in which a group of aliens had kidnapped him and then tortured him non-stop, and now he had finally woken up from the dream. Wei Ji sat up straight and saw Lotus Sun at first glance. Miss Lotus Sun, why are you here? Don't say anything, brother Wei Ji. How do you feel now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? She asked with concern. Uncomfortable? Wei Ji frowned. I don't feel particularly uncomfortable anywhere, but my chest feels a little heavy. Chest, heavy? Lotus Sun was blank. Then Weiji frowned as he touched his chest, a look of utter shock on his face. What is this? Why do I have 2 airbags? Lotus Sun, brother Weiji, calm down. No. I'm definitely still in the nightmare. Miss Lotus Sun, please don't wake me up again. I want to sleep a little more. After saying that, Weiji's vision darkened and he fainted again. What should we do? Lotus Sun was at a loss. It really is very big. Sun Yinger sighed. Let's take him back first. After all, it's really hard to accept waking up as a transvestite. Chapter 1483. If word got out that Battle Saint's granddaughter had been kidnapped, it would probably shake the whole country. Fortunately, Lotus Sun had handled the situation very well and prevented it from escalating further. Not only had she eliminated that blind alien in time, she had also obtained a lot of information and saved Jiang Yingying and Wei Ji's lives. But right now she was still more worried about Wei Ji's condition. Although Wei Ji had been rescued, the situation was indeed a little unexpected. The main thing was that those 2 things were really too big. Lotus Sun felt that they were even bigger than the Master of Shadow Stream whom she had arrested back then. But it wasn't practical to send him to the hospital in this situation. After that, Lotus Sun settled Jiang Yingying in the hotel and arranged for a female private doctor she trusted to take care of her. After that, he took Wei Ji back to his room and immediately contacted Audiobook to check on the situation. When they met, Lotus Sun smelled durian on Audiobook. Senior Zhuo, did you eat durian? Sorry, don't you like the smell? I came in a hurry and didn't rinse my mouth. It's fine, I also like durian. Lotus Sun smiled. Audiobook could clearly feel the fatigue on the girl's face. While the passive version of becoming one with the sword could indeed increase the girl's combat strength, if she was constantly under stress, she would consume more energy. In the end, it wasn't usually a lack of physical strength, but a sense of mental exhaustion. There weren't any side effects. It was just that she got sleepy easily and would be fine when she woke up. On the contrary, if she was more relaxed during the fight, there wouldn't be any problems. Thanks to the girl's call for help earlier, Audiobook had already gained a general understanding of the entire fight. Wei Ji had almost died. This was probably one of the main reasons for her nervousness. Master's wife was still lacking in battle experience. Audiobook smiled helplessly in his heart. In fact, he had missed a very important point. Actually, the main reason for the girl's nervousness was that during the fight, she had been constantly thinking of meeting up with Wang Ling as soon as possible. After all, she had fought Old God before. What kind of person was Old God? He was Tao ancestor Wang's first love and the founder of the world of the gods. In that fight, the girl had never shown any fear in the face of Old God. Let alone an alien whose combat strength was far inferior to Old God's? I'd better settle this matter as soon as possible. Audiobook muttered in his heart. He felt that the girl was in dire need of rest, and the tiredness could be seen from her expression. Perhaps it was her sense of responsibility that kept her from collapsing. Walking over to the big bed Wei Ji was lying on, he rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was seeing things. Why are there 2 basketballs on brother Wei Ji's body? I want to know too. Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That's why I asked Senior to take a look. You said something big happened on the phone. Is this what you were referring to? Audiobook couldn't help laughing. After eating the white rabbit creamy candy Shifu gave you, brother Wei Ji was resurrected, and then these 2 basketballs appeared, right? Yes. Lotus Sun nodded. Staring at the bloated Wei Ji on the bed, Audiobook hesitated for a bit before he gritted his teeth and touched him with a red face. Brother Wei Ji, I'm sorry. Lotus Sun turned her face slightly and also felt her cheeks burning. For some reason she felt that Audiobook seemed very familiar with this. Junior sister Lotus Sun, do you think I'm very skilled? When I was a grassroots soldier, I helped raise cows for the army. That's how I trained. Audiobook only let go after squeezing for a full 10 seconds. He couldn't help laughing. I think I know what's going on. Senior Zhuo, you know how to solve it? The creamy candy Shifu gave me have the effect of rapidly and continuously increasing spirit energy. From a biological point of view, the chest is made up of muscle fibers and fat. But the reason for brother Wei Ji's bloated body is something else. Cupping his chin, Audiobook analyzed, after brother Wei Ji died, a large number of cells in his body died, and at the same time his blood stopped flowing because his heart stopped beating. The proteins in his blood started to decay, and eventually evaporated as water evaporated. Brother Weiji was indeed beyond saving at first, but fortunately junior sister Lotus Sun treated him in time. The spirit energy provided by Shifu's creamy candies is different from ordinary spirit energy. Apart from assisting in cultivation, it also has the effect of repairing bodily functions. It's divided into spirit energy molecules for cultivation and spirit energy molecules for repair. Spirit energy molecules for cultivation are released slowly and continuously so they won't accumulate. But it's different when it comes to repairing spirit energy molecules. But because Brother Weiji was already dead, the spirit energy molecules activated by the creamy candies were for repair. At this point, Lotus Sun felt that she already understood a little. Ajua, after a large amount of spirit energy formed in Brother Weiji's body, it started to repair his cells, and in the end Brother Weiji came back to life. I see. Lotus Sun was enlightened. So Brother Weiji is now, that's right? Brother Weiji's basketball now actually contains these spirit energy molecules for repair, and generally doesn't need any special treatment. After a while, the swelling will go down on its own, Ajwa said. When Brother Weiji wakes up, you can directly tell him that it's a temporary side effect caused by a healing elixir, so he doesn't need to worry too much. That is to say, this creamy candies don't have any effect on breast enlargement to begin with. At that moment, Sun Yinger's voice suddenly rang out. Shifu is a decent person, of course he doesn't. Sun Yinger sighed in disappointment. It seems that Ling Jinren still doesn't understand Rongrong's feelings. She really lacks puberty. You're the one who lacks puberty, it's clearly you who wants to. Lotus Sun blushed. Who knew whether it was because she was shy or because she was a little angry at Sun Yinger's inappropriate words. One last question. Why are these spirit energy molecules for repair hoarding in the chest? Sun Yinger asked at that moment. Because Shifu specially custom-made them for women. They're ergonomically designed for women. I just didn't expect Brother Weiji to eat them. There are also male ones? Yes. Ajwa nodded and said, it's just that for men they swell in another place, the bladder. At that moment, Ajwa looked at the time. It's getting late. Brother Weiji is fine, he'll be fine in 2 or 3 days. Junior Lotus Sun, you've worked hard today, I think you should rest early. You look very tired. No. I'm fine. After confirming that Weiji was safe and sound, Lotus Sun indeed felt as if a huge stone had been lifted off her shoulders, and she felt a lot more relaxed. Classmate Wang Ling is still waiting for me. She turned around, her mind still thinking about Wang Ling, but her eyelids couldn't help but close. She had only taken a few steps toward the door when her vision went black and she fell down. Ajwa strode forward and steadied the girl. Sure enough, she still couldn't hold on. He knew it would be like this. He could only settle his master's wife in the hotel first. At that moment, Ajwa thought in his heart. He asked Sun Yinger to help support Lotus Sun in Wei Ji's room for a while he ran to the front desk to get a presidential suite. In the end, when he was registering, the manager at the front desk said, "It's like this, Mr. Zhua. A youngster came here just now. He said that he had already gotten a room for Miss Sunday. Was it someone with delicate features and dead fish eyes?" Yes. The manager then took out a room card. This is the annual card for the presidential suite that the youngster left behind, as well as some candy. Where is he? He probably went home. Although he wasn't surprised by this outcome, Ajwa still sighed in his heart. If it hadn't been for this little interlude with the alien, Shifu and Mastress might have become one tonight. Where's the candy? Ajwa asked after accepting the room card from the manager. The manager smiled slightly, then took out something from under the table and put it on the table. The sack is full of candy. Ajwa. Chapter 1484. A whole sack of white rabbit creamy candies was already Wang Ling's trump card. But for Wang Ling himself, these candies were just for being stubborn sometimes. Perhaps Lotus Sun would come in handy now. Earlier, she and Golden Lamp had put on a show together to deliberately make Ping Shiren think that she had successfully retrieved Dao ancestor Wang's heavenly Dao magic cube. Later, there had been a huge explosion in the sealed area of Infinite Milky Way, and the entire sealed area had been destroyed. The auras of the terrifying creatures sealed inside as well as Peng Shiren had completely disappeared without a trace. Wang Ling had thought that they wouldn't die so easily, and had been waiting for Peng Shiren's next move. Who would have thought that he would actually be right? As for why they had been able to avoid Wang Ling's inspection, Wang Ling felt that it was very likely to have something to do with that mysterious ancient black stone. The ancient stone's radiation was very strong. Even in space, which Pring Shiren regarded as his home field, under the healing light of the stars, it was still difficult for him to hold on. But even so, given Ping Shiren's intelligence, as long as he could make good use of the ancient stone's ability, it would be completely fine to use it as a signal blocker. But Wang Ling felt that this might be harming the enemy while harming himself. Pring Shiren might indeed have used the power of the ancient black stone to create a shielding space, to magically disappear from the universe. But the problem was that if Ping Shiren stayed in this shielding space for one more day, all of his abilities would be directly blocked by the ancient black stone's influence. Of course, this was just Wang Ling's guess. But it should be close to the mark. Before returning to the Wang family's small villa, Wang Ling dropped by Wang Ming's research institute. He needed Wang Ming's help, so Wang Ming took this opportunity to collect the latest data on Wang Ling. Wang Ming, who was still wearing his white coat, took out a syringe and handed it to Wang Ling as he prepared to collect a blood sample. This is a special needle, but as usual, do it yourself. My skin is rough and thick, I definitely won't be able to pierce it. Wang Ling obediently took the syringe. Recently, Wang Ming had been working on an improved Wang Ling No. 3 integrated smart humanoid mecha armor. This was the latest third-generation mecha armor, which was much more powerful than the previous 2 generations, and had integrated a space transmission function into it. Wang Ming had set up this third-generation mecha armor in a container with a transmission function, so that when necessary he could directly receive a transmission through satellite positioning and use it at any time. The most important thing was that Wang Ming didn't need to wear the third-generation mecha armor at all. Using the latest space compression technology, Wang Ming had implanted chips in his pores. As a result, as soon as the third-generation mecha landed on the ground, all of the mecha's body parts would automatically fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. From summoning it to equipping himself, the Ling didn't even need to. Wang didn't Wang's blood Wang's demon. Chen didn't Chen's eye. After the blood sample was collected, Wang Ling handed the syringe back. There was no need for an antiseptic cotton to stop the bleeding. Almost as soon as the needle was pulled out, the puncture disappeared at the same time. The speed at which it healed was incomparably astonishing. So, that Peng Brat's new move is to find a shoddy alien to deal with you? Wang Ming asked as he put the blood sample into a container. It's Lotus Sun, said Wang Ling. Isn't dealing with Miss Fu Rong the same as dealing with you? Wang Ming smiled evilly. It's different, Wang Ling replied. You're too impatient. Wang Ming wouldn't budge. No. Wang Ling's face was as calm as an ancient well. If you don't, then why are you talking so much to me? Wang Ming chuckled. Without another word, Wang Ling straightaway got up and prepared to wake Jiayin up in the sleeping cabin next door. Seeing this, Wang Ming pulled him back. Don't do this, my boy. I'm just joking. You probably don't want to wake up Jiayin to make you supper, right? After careful consideration, Wang Ling finally sat down again obediently. That's right. Wang Ming bared his teeth and smiled. His smile was still as warm as a spring breeze, but there was a hint of foolishness in the sunlight. Wang Ling felt that only Wang Ming had this kind of temperament. There was a saying called, extremely smart. Wang Ming's brain was so powerful, but his hair was actually still lush, which was amazing to Wang Ling. It was definitely because of a hair transplant. Given Wang Ming's abilities, he could even create something as formidable as the third-generation mecha armor. Wouldn't an automatic hair transplant be a piece of cake? Wang Ling remembered that Wang Ying had taken the initiative to separate from his body previously. Because he had used a forbidden spell, Wang Ying's hair had fallen out irreversibly. Now that Wang Ying was back and the shadow was bound to Wang Ling again, the hair that had fallen out had grown back. If Heavenly King Ying still wanted to completely cut ties with Wang Ling, the hair would still fall out. When that time came, Wang Ming's help would be unavoidable. The cost analysis of Wang Ling's blood samples had always been very complicated. In the past, he had to wait several days for a complete result. But after accumulating experience, Wang Ming was now able to use a machine to analyze Wang Ling's blood sample data using a program that he had made up himself. Now, it only took him less than half an hour to analyze the data. Let's wait, I'll take a look at the other thing you brought. Then Wang Ming took out a sealed test tube made of a special material from the table. It contained the ashes of the silver horn man that Wang Ling had collected earlier. They've already been reduced to ashes? This Miss Rong is really awesome now, even this alien can't beat her. Wang Ming was astonished by her growth. There was only a little bit of the ashes, which Wang Ling had gone to great lengths to extract from the air after Lotus Sun had left that abandoned factory. It looks like a silver horn man, right? The two silver horns on its head curl back like a cow's, and it also has a tail. Wang Ming searched his memory, but didn't think he had any impression of such an alien creature. Guoping of the Research Institute was now an international diplomat establishing diplomatic relations with extraterrestrials. Since Divine Tao Star and Earth had started working together, basically all kinds of data on extraterrestrials had been collected. All the data was shared in the large database of the International Alliance of Cultivators. With this large database, it shouldn't be difficult to find out what this Silverhorn man looked like before his evolution as long as they did a DNA comparison. This search will take a little longer than analyzing your blood sample. You'll know in 10 minutes. At that moment, Wang Ming cupped his chin as he looked forward to what on earth this Silverhorn man was. At the same time on the other side, Old Man Sun was on the phone with Jiang Xiaoche. At the same time, he planned to report on the situation. Chapter 1485. On the night Lotus Sun went to Old Street, Old Man Sun still hadn't fallen asleep. To be honest, he was a little nervous, although he had always firmly believed in the youngster he had set his sights on. He wouldn't do anything out of line with his granddaughter. But Jiang Xiaoche's words inevitably worried Old Man Sun a little. It wasn't uncommon for an upright teenager to make a mistake in a moment of hot-headedness. Sun Yiyuan considered himself to be an open-minded person. It was normal for young people to release their feelings after they fell in love with each other. Thus, the old man didn't reject his precious granddaughter's love behavior, because true love was a virtuous cycle that could make both parties better people. Even if they didn't end up together in the end, they would still gain a lot of growth and unforgettable experiences. And these were precious treasures that were hard to erase in life. Sunday, December 13th. In the wee hours of the morning, Jiang Xiaoche's phone call woke Old Man Sun up from his contemplation. "How is it?" Old Man Sun asked, pretending to be calm. He wanted to know what Wang Ling would do after receiving the room card he had drawn. "Old man, I want to ask you a question first," Jiang Xiaoche said over the phone. "Go ahead." "If a person did something to a girl who was unconscious, that's beastly behavior." The old man frowned. "Then what if he doesn't do anything?" Jiang Xiaoche continued. "Is the girl pretty?" Old Man Sun was suspicious. "Of course. She's as beautiful as a fairy." Jiang Xiaoche said. "Worse than a beast." Old Man Sun said. Jiang Xiaoche was instantly happy to get a definite answer. "Okay, I'll give you the latest update. Miss seems to have played all day today and is too tired. She didn't return to her villa, but stayed at the Holiday Inn on Old Street. No wonder Auntie Chiu told me that Rong didn't come back tonight. At the very least, this child should have sent a message to inform us." "That's not the point." Jiang Xiaoche smiled. "The point is that Wang Ling used the room card he drew to get a room for eldest miss." "Really?" Old Man Sun's pupils trembled. "Then where is classmate Wang Ling now?" "Back. After getting a room he gave the room card to the front desk. I can't believe he actually went back to his own home." Jiang Xiaoche smiled and said, "That's the current situation. Is there anything you would like to say, old sir?" According to the logic of the first few questions, abandoning the beautiful girl and going home to live was clearly an act that was worse than a beast. Jiang Xiaoche was looking forward to Old Man Sun's reply, but he heard Sun Yiyuan let out a long sigh of relief on the other side of the phone. Then he said loudly, "Good. I knew it. Student Wang Ling won't let me down." Jiang Xiaoche, "Huh. What are you up for?" Old Man Sun said, "This annual pass to the presidential suite is priceless. Even if classmate Wang Ling didn't resell it, he could still make a fortune. But he didn't do so, which proves that he's a very conservative person. Classmate Wang Ling clearly could have sold it, but when his classmate was tired, he took the initiative to take out his room card and get a room for Rong so that she could rest as soon as possible. This proves once again that classmate Wang Ling is actually a very generous person. After getting a room, classmate Wang Ling chose to leave on his own accord and go home to rest. He didn't take advantage of her when she was down to do anything out of line, which shows that classmate Wang Ling is a good, upright and kind-hearted child. As expected of Rong, she really has good taste. As he said this, Old Man Sun's eyes started to glisten with tears. He himself was almost moved by what he had said. Jiang Shaoche remembered that old man Sun clearly didn't say that just now. Elsewhere, in Wang Ming's lab, the DNA analysis report on the Silver Horn people had already been released. After comparing the data in the database, it showed that in the current large database, there was not a single DNA gene that matched the current data. In other words, the match had been a complete failure. This was a shared database of the International Alliance of Cultivators. After Divine Dao Star had been recruited, the data on the aliens here was as thick as an encyclopedia. But after a comparison, Wang Ming realized that there wasn't a single DNA match, which he hadn't expected. Although Guoping was currently mainly responsible for connecting with extraterrestrial civilizations, many of them had only learned about Earth through Divine Dao Star. But the fact was that human cultivators had never stopped exploring extraterrestrial civilizations all this time. Thus, the rumor that aliens were lurking in the human cultivation world wasn't groundless. The aliens related to the Silver Horn people had come to Earth a long time ago and used human skin to blend into human cultivator society. It wasn't strange that there was a lack of data in such a large database. They had mingled in human society for many years and had long since established themselves in human skin. They might even be among the top echelons of humanity. It might be easy to find a way to hide their traces. So to be on the safe side, Wang Ming used his own technical means to screen the Alliance's large database again. In the end he sighed. Sure enough, there's no trace of an anomaly. There was only one way now, and that was to start with the private files of each country. Perhaps there would be new discoveries. The Alliance's large database contained public information. None of this was a secret. But as humans, selfishness was actually the norm. There might be additional secrets between countries that weren't made public that were included in special top-secret files. However, it would be extremely difficult to steal this file. Even if Wang Ming could do it, he would have to consider a lot of issues. Because if he failed, apart from exposing his personal information, his own country would also be implicated. Wang Ling looked at Wang Ming's serious expression. He suddenly thought of a famous line, "My lover is this country." He felt that this line was also very appropriate for Wang Ming. Although Wang Shaoer was indeed a bit of an idiot sometimes, when he got serious and explored academic issues in his field of expertise, it was as if this man had become a completely different person. Give me 3 days and I'll try my best. But for safety reasons, I can only retreat if I'm in danger of being exposed. Whether or not I can get the data will depend on my luck, Wang Ming said. All right. Wang Ling nodded. Then he casually struck Wang Ming with a golden light. What is this, the Great Fortune spell? Said Wang Ling. Oh, is that the spell you used before that can greatly increase your fortune? Wang Ming said. In other words, I've become a lucky emperor now? Wang Ling nodded. But little brother, do you know that lucky emperor has another meaning now? In the language of Sun Island, it also means Pai. Combined with the concept of emperor, it means someone with big breasts. The apex. Chapter 1486. That night, Wang Ling's blood analysis report was released. Wang Ming stared at the arrow after each line of data on the sample, and he couldn't help frowning. This wasn't a rare expression. When middle-aged people in hospitals with high blood sugar levels and fatty livers received their reports, the expression on their faces was almost identical to Wang Ming's. Such a frowning expression could also be seen on other occasions. For example, when your parents received your school report. For example, when you saw an author who was unfinished. For example, when your teacher found out that you hadn't done your homework and had run off to read the daily life of the immortal king. For example, when you saw the author of a book write so many sentences starting with the word "for example," you might also frown and wonder whether this short and small author was faking the word count. Back to business. Generally speaking, when an ordinary person received a blood analysis report, their first reaction would definitely be to look at the arrow after the indicator. The normal range for cholesterol was 2.8 to 5.17 mol and the test data was 6.17 mol. Although it was a little over, there was still hope. However, if there was an arrow in Wang Ling's blood sample, it often meant danger. Sure enough, it's just as I thought. The concentration of the energy is rising even faster than before. Wang Ming carefully examined the data in the analysis report, and his face turned a little unsightly. The analysis of Wang Ling's blood sample data had initially been for the purpose of building the 4th-generation mecha armor. In the end, the indicator in Wang Ling's body was extremely high, which was far beyond Wang Ming's expectations. According to the data on the talisman seal at the very beginning, the talisman seal could basically last Wang Ling for several years. In Wang Ling's body, the data on what Wang Ming called Ling energy concentration had reached an equilibrium level. As Wang Ling continued to grow, the talisman seal suppression time decreased year by year. But because the talisman seal itself was constantly being upgraded, Wang Ming estimated that the next generation talisman seal wouldn't be a problem for at least 2 years. But now he realized that he had miscalculated. Wang Ling's growth was faster than he had imagined. Wang Ming had specially given the talisman seal to number 59 high school back then, thinking that it would smoothly help Wang Ling get through high school. But now he realized that while this talisman seal looked very new and didn't show any signs of cracking at all, but it seemed a little difficult to suppress the concentration of data in his body to an equilibrium level. Thus, finding a new substance that could be used to suppress Wang Ling was almost an urgent matter. You said that you found a mysterious black stone that even the king's eye couldn't see through when you sealed it, right? At that moment, Wang Ming suddenly said, "If possible, I hope you can get your hands on this black stone as soon as possible." Wang Ming felt that this ancient black stone which Wang Ling had mentioned earlier might be the key to everything. Of course, developing a new talisman was definitely not that simple. However, this matter should definitely be carried out as soon as possible. Then what should we do now? At that moment, Wang Ying finally couldn't help but ask, "Are you very concerned about my brother? He and I are one. If he can't control his energy, he will explode." "I will also be finished," Wang Ying replied. To be honest, Wang Ming had never seen what Wang Ying looked like, and only knew that this thing existed. Hearing the shadow behind Wang Ling suddenly speak now, Wang Ming was slightly taken aback. "Interesting. My brother is autistic but you aren't. Furthermore, you seem to be a chatterbox?" The personality of a shadow is the opposite of that of the original body. "Of course I won't be autistic." Wang Ying laughed. "Besides, I've already tasted a girl." Saying this, Wang Ying licked his lips. He recalled how he had forced a kiss on Sun Yinger before, and even now he still felt like he hadn't had enough. These last few days, Wang Ying had actually been looking for an excuse to do it again. However, he didn't know what was going on with Sun Yinger these past few days. She seemed to be exceptionally quiet, and she didn't deliberately speak ill of him, as long as she didn't violate the family rules. Wang Ying couldn't find any reason to punish him at all. It was really too much of a pity, the taste of a girl? Wang Ming also laughed. "So what you're saying is that my brother is a virgin who hasn't even tasted a girl before? Isn't that so?" Wang Ling was silent and had nothing to say. "But as far as I know, you're also a virgin, right?" Wang Ying suddenly said at that moment. The corner of Wang Ming's mouth twitched. He realized that in comparison Wang Ling was indeed much more adorable. This shadow was too ****king annoying. Wasn't it better to be clear about some things? Why did he have to say it out loud and make people feel awkward? And the most important thing was that he couldn't do anything to Wang Ying. But out of respect for an adult man, Wang Ming still stubbornly said, "I wasn't a virgin a long time ago." "Is that so?" Wang Ying laughed. Wang Ming blushed slightly but still made up a story. "When I was my brother's age, I didn't need too many female companions. Some of them were already pregnant with my children, and I heard that they could do functions as soon as they were born." At that moment, Wang Ling actually saw the faint black aura of a death omen star between Wang Ming's eyebrows. He knew roughly what had happened. He was hesitating about whether or not to tell Wang Ming. But sometimes this idiot brother just liked to brag without a draft. In any case, there was no tax on bragging. Sometimes when he got carried away he couldn't stop. "You still don't believe me? Let me tell you, I know all kinds of positions. If you don't understand them in the future, you can come and ask me. Since you're my brother's shadow, I don't think it's too much for you to call me Brother Ming, right?" "You really have the nerve to say that." Wang Ying laughed. "What's there to be embarrassed about? Your brother Ming has a lot of experience. Not only has he read countless movies, but he's also very experienced in actual combat. Do you know my brain deduction technique?" "Oh, you mean the ability to simulate countless situations in the brain, and then rank the results of these deductions in descending order according to their probability to arrive at the optimal solution?" "That's right." Wang Ming nodded. "You said you kissed a girl once. But I'm different. With this ability, when I kiss a girl, my brain simulates thousands of ways to kiss, which can actually help me accumulate experience." Wang Ling was stunned. Weren't they supposed to be discussing his Ling energy concentration now? Why did they suddenly change the subject and suddenly start discussing this strange topic? And most importantly, Wang Ling realized that he couldn't get a word in edgewise. First of all, he indeed didn't have any experience, and second, he didn't know how to brag. His life was really too lowly. At that moment, Wang Ling didn't know what to do. A familiar figure suddenly appeared at the door of Wang Ming's lab. At some point, Jiayin had woken up in the sleeping pod. She just happened to hear what Wang Ming had said. Wang Ming. Danger. Chapter 1487. As Wang Ming's personal bodyguard, like most cultivators, Jiayin generally didn't need to rest at all. Her task was to protect Wang Ming and assist him in some of his experiments. In addition, if she discovered that Wang Ming was conducting relatively dangerous experiments, Jiayin would also consider reporting the problem to her superiors. Wang Ming actually didn't dislike Jiayin, but there were times when she was too rigid in her work. Most importantly, there were a lot of things that he couldn't explain to her, which created some communication barriers. Then Wang Ming thought of an idea. He had specially invented the sleeping pod, a cultivation magic treasure that was slightly black technology. Although cultivators could go without sleep for a long time, their bodies would inevitably be distracted when they were constantly working, and over time, their spirit root might even be affected to some extent. There weren't too many side effects. It was nothing more than overdrawing on the body in advance, resulting in a drop in concentration, rough skin, and so on. Wang Ming's sleeping pod was a tool specially designed to deal with this kind of situation. Sleeping for 5 minutes in the sleeping pod was equivalent to sleeping for 24 hours, and could quickly recharge a cultivator's batteries. Currently, the sleeping pods that Wang Ming had invented could be divided into the home type and the capsule type. The capsule type sleeping pod had already been put into military use. As long as it was placed on the ground, the capsule would automatically expand when it was shaken, and then turn into a sleeping pod the size of a person. It was also a one-button operation to retract it, and it could be compressed back into a capsule by pressing a specific button. Wang Ming had now successfully applied for a patent on the sleeping pod. After the official announcement that it would be put into military use, there were a lot of orders from military factories, which was also Wang Ming's source of funding for his experiments. Just counting the orders from Wuxia Nation alone, there were already several billion yuan. When he ran out of money, he would make some little gadgets to make a little money. That was all. As the most powerful brain, it had never been difficult for Wang Ming to develop new products. Of course, on the surface he had invented the sleeping pod to serve the military, but the truth was that his original purpose had been to restrain Jiayin. Jiayin wouldn't let him do many of the experiments because they were dangerous. In this case it was fine as long as he could lock Jiayin in the sleeping pod. Although Jiayin was a tomboy, she was in the end a girl who loved beauty. Jiayin didn't need Wang Ming to explain that not sleeping for a long time wasn't good for the skin. Thus, after the sleeping pods were invented, Jiayin had practically become accustomed to using them. Wang Ming had also figured out how she used them, and had taken advantage of Jiayin's time off to conduct a lot of secret experiments. So at this moment, Jiayin should still be inside. Wang Ming instantly quivered when he saw that slightly murderous gaze. I didn't expect you to be so experienced in the field of love. Why haven't I heard you mention it before? Jiayin's face was clouded as she focused all her attention on Wang Ming's words. He didn't care who on earth Wang Ming was discussing emotions with. When she woke up, she could hear Wang Ying's voice outside. She only knew that it clearly wasn't Wang Ling's voice. It was probably Wang Ming talking to a friend on speakerphone. She didn't care who he talked to. But as an official magic treasure researcher, while Wang Ming was an academician, he was also a magic treasure consultant specially hired by the army. This was a member of the organization. Since he was a member of the organization, Jiayin felt that it was necessary for her to be concerned about his lifestyle. Inzi, listen to me, it's not what you think. Wang Ming's forehead was already drenched in sweat. He didn't know why he was in such a hurry to explain these things to Jiayin. He just felt that if he didn't explain, the consequences might be very serious. That was because he realized that whenever Jiayin was in a bad mood, this guy would cook to vent his emotions. And he was the lab rat of Inzi cuisine. As for how terrifying Jiayin's cooking was, Wang Ming felt that he didn't need to explain. It wasn't just that it was poisonous, it was all corpse-dissolving powder. Wang Ming felt that after eating it, his entire body would be melted by the poison. Thus, combined with mathematical concepts, Wang Ming called it factorization. Seeing that a big battle was inevitable that night, Wang Ling couldn't be bothered to put up with it, so he hurriedly left the lab and left Wang Ming alone. He wasn't worried that Wang Ming would die. In any case, Wang Ming now had the support of the Great Fortune spell, so even if Jiayin used force, there was a high chance that Wang Ming would continuously miss him. However, the effect of the Great Fortune spell would only last for a week. After this week, Wang Ming's life would presumably become very exciting. It was still Sunday, December 13th. At 8 o'clock that morning, Wang Ling sent Wang Ming a message to confirm whether he was still alive and well. Wang Ming was full of praise for the Great Fortune spell. "My boy, this move of yours is too strong. After you left yesterday, I was flustered and exasperated, and used a set of Wing Chun boxing on me, but in the end, it didn't even hit me." He knew it would be like this. Wang Ling wasn't surprised by this outcome. He replied to Wang Ming in a few short messages. The gist of it was for Wang Ming to take it easy and not be too cheap. Because the spell only lasted for a limited time. If he acted stupidly now, it would be Wang Ming himself who would suffer when the time was up. Wang Ling usually disdained using the Great Fortune spell on himself, because it made his life very boring. And unless there was a special need for it, Wang Ling didn't intend to use it on other people lightly. For ordinary people, the Great Fortune spell might have a very good effect for a while, but if they got used to it, they would become dependent on it. In fact, it wasn't just dependence. Apart from Wang Ling himself, when anyone else used this spell, the effect of the increase in fortune would continuously decrease. And the more frequently it was used, the faster it would decrease. Wang Ming was a powerful person. With the blessing of the Great Fortune spell, it was like adding wings to a tiger and adding flowers to a brocade. But there was no need to use it frequently. On the other side, Lotus Sun slept for a very long time. When she woke up, she found herself lying on the big bed in the hotel's presidential suite, and Sun Yinger was next to her, taking care of her. "Rong Rong, you're awake? What's wrong with me?" The girl got up and looked at the bathrobe she was wearing, and couldn't help feeling puzzled. "Who helped me change?" "Ling Jinren, of course." Sun Yinger smiled evilly. "You were too tired yesterday, so you fainted. Ling Jinren brought you here to take a bath and change your clothes?" "Classmate Wang Ling. How is this possible?" Lotus Sun covered her small mouth, her beautiful face pale. "I'm just kidding, of course it was me." Sun Yinger's face was full of grievance. "You know, Rong Rong, my waist isn't very good to begin with. But then again, are you looking forward to something?" Lotus Sun's face instantly burned to her ears. "I wasn't." Although she hadn't been able to get along with Wang Ling alone yesterday, when she saw the sack of milk candies he had left for her, she was still taken aback. Although there was regret in her heart, she was more happy and delighted. After accepting the sack of milk candies, Lotus Sun was in a great mood. Close to noon that day, the girl was about to check out at the front desk on the first floor, when the elevator suddenly stopped on the third floor. When she opened the door, she saw Kumiya, Ryoko and Audiobook standing at the elevator door in the same style of traditional Chinese clothing. Lotus Sun's expression was extremely astonished. As expected of Senior Zhuo, that was too fast. But the atmosphere at the moment seemed a little stiff. It wasn't until the elevator reached the first floor and she heard the ding sound of the door opening that Lotus Sun plucked up the courage to ask Kumiya Ryoko tentatively, "Classmate Kumiya, can I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." Kumiya Ryoko snorted. "Classmate Kumiya, have you already been won over by Senior Zhuo?" Then Lotus Sun saw Kumiya Ryoko's originally calm face gradually change color. Chapter 1488. Hearing such a straightforward question, the expression on Ryoko's face instantly became extremely interesting. She and Audiobook had gone downstairs mainly to hand over the task with the female bodyguard called Junko. Next, Brother Wei and the other two would be watched by Junko as important, tainted witnesses. It was supposed to be a normal handover of work, but Ryoko Kamiya didn't expect to run into Lotus Sun when she went downstairs. Furthermore, he was asked such a strange question: strategy? What a joke. She would not be tricked by this flowery old liar. Ryoko blushed. In fact, she didn't reply directly. She just snorted and said, "Don't think that you can talk nonsense just because you helped me. Audiobook and I only have a normal working relationship." She crossed her arms and looked a little impatient. As soon as the elevator door opened, she slipped out. Lotus Sun gazed at the young girl's back. There was actually some faint panic under her calm exterior. "Senior Audiobook, you really picked up a treasure." A smile hung on Lotus-san's face. In her heart, she also felt that Ryoko Kuya was much cuter than she had imagined. Originally, she and Jiogong Ryoko were like fire and water, mainly because Lotus-san was worried that Jiogong Ryoko would harm the youth in her heart. Furthermore, they might even come up with some kind of seduction plan to deal with classmate Wang Ling. This was absolutely not allowed to happen. But from the inquiry just now, Lotus-san felt that perhaps even Ryoko herself hadn't realized that she had already fallen. He might not like Ajwa yet, but he definitely had a good impression of him. After all, Yoshiko was a person who liked to say one thing and mean another. Junior sister Lotus-san must be joking. Ajwa smiled bitterly. The two of them stepped out of the elevator and walked very slowly with tacit understanding. I see that Senior Ajwa has no qualms about going after classmate Ryoko. It looks like you already know, right? Just a few steps away, Lotus-san's probing question startled Ajwa. Junior sister Lotus-san is referring to the 6 mothers-in-law I'll have to face in the future? Ajwa's eyes darted around as he feigned ignorance. Senior Ajwa, you're underestimating me too much. I can still find out about this. Lotus-san sighed and said with a dignified smile, but please rest assured, Senior, I won't tell anyone about classmate Yoshiko's secret. That's good. Ajwa heaved a sigh of relief. Actually, I'm also waiting. He was waiting for the day when Kamiya Ryoko would confess her secret to him. Moreover, he deeply believed that it wouldn't be too late for that day to come. When she came to the front desk to check out, Lotus-san felt the hostility of the female bodyguard named Junko. Lotus-san couldn't remember when she had offended her, but she had a rough understanding of the hostility in her eyes. After all, in the female bodyguard's impression, she had always been the enemy of the Jiogong family. Chunko, don't be so rude. Kamiya Ryoko noticed Junko's abnormality and quickly reminded her softly. Although the female bodyguard did not understand what had happened between her Miss and Miss Sun, she still restrained the sharpness in her eyes. The most important thing is what I told you last night. Someone in my family is trying to take advantage of my study abroad period to harm me. Kamiya Yoshiko said. It had now been confirmed that the people involved were the Ah-Wei trio, who worked under 6th Madam's command. As for the Ghost Chart Rebellion, Kamiya Ryoko felt that it was another group of people plotting in secret. That was to say, there were at least 2 groups of people who wanted to deal with her. Furthermore, these 2 groups of people were already out in the open. As for whether there were any other forces in the family who wanted to make a move against her, Kamiya Ryoko had no idea. She had come to Huashio Nation to resolve this foreign aggression. She had thought that after smoothly exposing Ajwa's matter, the Jiogong family would be able to gain a deeper foothold in the Huashio market. But Kamiya Ryoko had never expected that before this foreign aggression had been resolved, the family's internal problems would actually erupt ahead of time. Last night, Kamiya Ryoko had thought about it for a long time. She felt that it was more important to settle the Jiogong family's internal affairs first. If the Jiogong family fought endlessly, it would be useless even if she eventually won the Huashio market. If the family wasn't united in the end, it would all be for naught. What was more, the new evidence that had emerged now suggested that the matter with Ajwa back then might have been a misunderstanding on the part of the Jiogong family. True combat strength wouldn't lie. Ajwa was indeed very strong. Kamiya Ryoko had already experienced this for herself. After assigning the basic tasks, Kamiya Ryoko went one step further and said to the female bodyguard in front of her, Junko, while you watch over Ah-Wei and the other 2, I'll hire a new bodyguard to be in charge of my safety for the time being. Kamiya Ryoko had originally wanted to keep this a secret, but Junko was one of her own, so she felt that it was better to be honest. Bodyguard? Oh. Junko was stunned. She had actually heard the rumor about the new bodyguard last night, and was very curious about who it was. It's me, I've been standing in front of you for a long time. Ajwa pointed to himself with a radiant smile. You? Junko was shocked. Wasn't this guy the target of their investigation? But very quickly her expression returned to normal. Junko had her own understanding of why her young lady had hired Ajwa as a bodyguard. It had to be to better get close to Ajwa and find evidence of his impersonation, which was why she had arranged this show, right? She understood. In fact, Junko herself was also very angry with these impersonators. The main thing was that there had been more and more news about impersonators recently, such as impersonating someone else's identity and getting into a university. Although their education had been revoked later, this kind of behavior had already interfered with other people's lives. These people who used power and money to change their own fates had no idea how much effort the person they were impersonating had put in to change their own fates. Due to the long period of time, it was usually very difficult to find direct evidence against these imposters who had power and influence. So eldest Miss Ryoko had thought of hiring Ajwa as a bodyguard to keep this guy by her side, which would make it easier to collect evidence, as expected of eldest Miss Ryoko. Looking at the female bodyguard's frowning face, Jimiya Ryoko was speechless. She had never doubted Junko's imagination. But faced with Ajwa and her current situation, Jimiya Ryoko indeed felt that it would be difficult to explain this complicated relationship in just a few words. Thus, she could only sigh in her heart and ignore what the female bodyguard was thinking for the time being. Also, have you found the senior I asked you to help me find? Jimiya Ryoko suddenly asked at that moment. The senior changed his address and it took us a while to find him, the female bodyguard said. Judging from his current whereabouts, he seems to be going to Battle Sect a lot recently. Going to Battle Sect a lot? At that moment, Jimiya Ryoko glanced at Ajwa and felt that he could help. Many people go to Battle Sect, so who is this senior? Ajwa asked, rubbing the back of his head. This is the original creator of the Ghost Record. Jimiya Ryoko looked at Ajwa and said, I can't tell you anything else, but this senior's name is Jin Deng. Ajwa. Chapter 1489. What a small world. Ajwa sighed with emotion in his heart. Although when Kamiya Ryoko said the keyword Battle Sect, he vaguely felt that it might be related to someone he knew. It was just that he didn't expect this acquaintance to be Senior Golden Lamp. After all, he was a monk who had lived through so many reincarnations. He had done all kinds of jobs. Even the production of the Jiogong family's Ghost Manual had something to do with him. He was basically a full-time expert. It looks like you know this senior? Ryoko Kamiya blinked at Ajwa as if expecting something. Ajwa couldn't help sneering in his heart. This was more than just an acquaintance. After being beaten into submission by Wang Ling, Senior Golden Lamp was already one of them. Although he didn't have a position in Battle Sect on the surface, he was in fact in the group chat of Battle Sect's core members. Furthermore, because Ajwa was Wang Ling's disciple, Jin Deng actually took good care of him. Basically, as long as Ajwa dared to ask, Jin Deng would never refuse his request. Of course, Ajwa generally wouldn't specially ask Jin Deng for help for no reason. He knew very well that the Golden Lamp was willing to help him largely out of respect for his master. And for a senior like this, even if he returned the favor, he might not even be able to see him, so he might end up causing trouble for his master. But now, for Kamiya Yoshiko's words, Ajwa felt that he could be bold for once. The main thing was that this was not a request, but an instruction to help Kamiya Ryoko pull some strings to meet Golden Lamp Monk. I have a rough idea of where Senior Golden Lamp is, but it's hard to say whether we'll meet. Ajwa deliberately kept her in suspense. How about this, I'll take classmate Yoshiko to have a look today. I'll go too. I can send someone else to keep an eye on them. Junko said. You can't. You have to stay and look after him. Ajwa looked at the female bodyguard. Monk Golden Lamp isn't used to being disturbed. He won't be happy if too many people go. But, just do as Ajwa says, Chunzi. Keeping an eye on the three of them is your top priority, Ryoko Kwamiya said. I understand, miss. Is there really something going on between you and this Ajwa? Junko felt that she had discovered a huge secret. He was obviously sending her away. It was obvious that he wanted to spend some alone time with her. If you talk nonsense again, I'll deduct all of your salary. Ryoko blushed and snorted. The reason why I chose you to keep an eye on him is because I can only choose you. Now that Awei and the others were being protected, the others thought that they were dead. Such an important secret must be guarded by the person I trust the most. Am I the person whom young mistress trusts the most? Of course. The female bodyguard named Junko was helpless. She was moved by Kamiya Ryoko's words. She would deliver their meals at a fixed time, and after they were done eating she would take away all the trash. Of course, to ensure that Awei and the other two wouldn't go crazy in the room, the TV in the room could be turned on as usual. Moreover, a game console had been installed in the room so that they could play some standalone games that didn't require an online connection to pass the time. This was a very simple job and even a little boring, but the advantage was that it was generally more leisurely. Reasonably speaking, Asakusa Nakaharu should be happy, but she didn't feel relaxed at all. She had wanted to go with Kamiya Ryoko to see Jin Deng earlier because she had her own plans. It was absolutely right not to stay in the hotel at this time. Because Aoi and the other two were very important to Miss Ryoko. But now that she was forced to stay, even Asakusa Nakaharu herself didn't know what would happen next. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees, her thoughts extremely complicated. At that moment her phone vibrated. Just like before, an unknown call made Asakusa Nakaharu's heart instantly jump. What's going on? It seems that you haven't reported the situation for 2 days in a row. Although the voice on the other end of the phone had been modified, it was still a person with a rough voice. Asakusa Nakaharu knew who was talking to her. She immediately fell into silence and after a long time she said, "Sorry? I asked for leave to go to the hospital yesterday, so don't make excuses." The person on the other end of the phone didn't bother to listen to her explanation. "Ms. Junko, I hope you can understand your situation and position. Don't play tricks." "I know, very good. Now let me ask you, is Inoue Masahide still alive?" On the other end of the phone, the person sneered in a tone as if everything was under control. "Ms. Junko, I hope you can answer truthfully." Chapter 1490. Kumiya Ryoko had changed into light white sportswear. In fact, this was spring grass Shigur's clothes. Given that there would be more field work later on, it seemed more convenient to move around in sportswear. She had put her hair up and a white cap over it. From a distance, she looked like a very good-looking boy. Of course, the main reason why Kumiya Ryoko looked like a boy wasn't the sportswear, the coiled hair or the cap, but the fact that her chest wasn't too high above sea level. Ajwa personally drove Kumiya Ryoko to where Golden Lantern was currently staying. On the way from time to time, he would look at the girl sitting in the front passenger seat with her arms crossed and her eyes slightly closed. Halfway there, Kumiya Ryoko finally couldn't take it anymore. "Have you seen enough? Shouldn't I be the one asking that?" Ajwa gripped the steering wheel, not the slightest bit flustered. "What do you mean?" Kumiya Ryoko frowned. "If you don't look at me, how do you know I'm looking at you?" Kumiya Ryoko was stupefied by this question. This was Ajwa's usual roguish sophistry. She knew that as a foreigner she would most likely be at a disadvantage if she continued to bicker with him. So she simply snorted and turned her head away. "If you want to look at me more generously. Isn't it a little too petty to look at me through the reflection in the glass window?" Ajwa laughed. "You, nonsense." Ajwa didn't know if he had hit the nail on the head, but the girl's face heated up. "As long as you know whether I'm talking nonsense or not. Aren't you always looking at me out of the corner of your eye? I'm driving so I have to watch the road. I can't help it, I can only look at you out of the corner of my eye." She was glad that the car was now passing through a tunnel. The environment inside was relatively dark, so her expression couldn't be seen, otherwise it would have been too embarrassing. Kumiya Ryoko was a very good person at adjusting her mood. Even Lotus Sun couldn't catch up to her in this regard. The moment the car drove out of the tunnel, the girl's expression had already returned to normal, and she had that cold poker face again. Unfortunately, Ajwa sighed in his heart. He had never denied that he liked to tease Ryoko Kamiya. The main reason was that he deeply felt this girl's adorable side. But the problem was that Ryoko's emotions fluctuated quickly, and she also adjusted quickly. Sometimes he really couldn't tell what the girl was thinking. "How did you do it?" Finally he couldn't help asking. "What?" "Your ability to control your emotions." Ryoko blushed. "When I was young I was a child star for a period of time." "Oh, so you've dabbled in show business before?" Ajwa was surprised. "That's not right, but it doesn't seem to have been mentioned in your resume? Which TV series did you shoot?" "It's just an advertisement." Ryoko Kamiya frowned slightly, seemingly unwilling to face her past. "Then why didn't you consider continuing? It's not like you've grown ugly. Instead you've become cute." When Ajwa said this, Kamiya Ryoko quickly raised her hand to press down on her hat and did her best to restrain her expression. "This wasn't something I wanted to do in the first place. It was my mother's wishful thinking," Ryoko explained. It was for this reason that she had never been willing to mention that she had once shot an advertisement as a child star. In Ryoko's view, this was actually a dark history. Of course, the female bodyguard Junko knew about it, but because she knew that this was a minefield, Kusakusa Shigeru had never mentioned it. But now, Ryoko Kamiya had actually taken the initiative to bring it up in front of Ajwa. She herself felt it a little inconceivable. After that, there was a long silence in the car. It wasn't easy to find a chance to be alone with the girl, and Ajwa certainly wouldn't miss out on this kind of teasing. He knew that Ryoko Kamiya had always paid more attention to her image. In a situation like this where there were no outsiders around, it didn't matter even if she joked a little because no one else could hear it. "What kind of advertisements did you shoot?" Ajwa asked. The corners of Ryoko's mouth twitched. She had thought that this topic was over. Sure enough, she had underestimated Ajwa. This old liar was obviously doing it on purpose. "None of your business." She clenched her little fists, the expression on her face changing like the energy indicator light on Ultraman's chest. "It's not a serious advertisement, is it?" Ajwa deliberately sounded her out. "Of course it's serious. It's a lifestyle advertisement. It's something that every family uses." Ryoko Kamiya was excited, but then realized that she had let the cat out of the bag. A lifestyle advertisement? Ajwa thought for a bit. Toilet paper? Roll paper? This was the first answer that came to his mind. After all, these two things were essential for a single man. Late at night, having toilet paper as a companion was also the romance of a man living alone. Seeing that the girl's expression didn't change much, Ajwa knew that he had most likely guessed wrong, and hurriedly corrected himself. "It's not a birth control product, is it? I was so cute when I was little. Anyone who saw me would want to have a few more. How could I endorse a birth control product?" After saying this, Ryoko Kamiya realized that Ajwa had once again gotten information out of her. This was a detective skill that Ajwa had learned from old Liang of Songhai First Prison. Ajwa himself hadn't expected that it would actually be useful in love. As he drove, Ajwa suddenly laughed as he gripped the steering wheel. "I know. The advertisement you're endorsing isn't for something like diapers, is it?" After all, this was an advertisement that Ryoko Kamiya regarded as a dark history. This was the only type of advertisement that Ajwa could think of. What was an advertisement for baby diapers like? An ignorant baby in a situation where he didn't know anything. The image of a naked baby crawling around on a soft cushion while the staff teased him with laughter. Just thinking about it made him feel ashamed. This time, Kamiya Ryoko buried her head in her knees, looking autistic. Listening to Ajwa's laughter as he tried not to laugh, she finally jerked her head up and looked at him with an extremely gloomy expression. "If you dare search, I'll never talk to you again." "Don't worry, I won't," Ajwa comforted her. In fact, that was exactly what he was thinking. A few minutes later, he was driving up a mountain road. "What is this place?" "I've already contacted Senior Golden Lamp. Senior Golden Lamp is cultivating in seclusion deep in the mountains these days." When the car was halfway up the mountain, there was no longer a path for cars to go uphill. This was an abandoned observation deck that hadn't been visited for a long time. Because there had been countless accidents here, the road had already been closed long ago. Ajwa could only park the car on the side and choose to walk up the mountain with Ryoko. "Is Senior Golden Lamp really in a place like this?" "This is Mount Wind and Thunder. Because of its unique geographical environment, the top of the mountain is sometimes shrouded in thunderclouds. But for cultivators, it's a good place to temper their bodies. Because there's a certain chance of being struck by lightning." Dubiously, Ryoko followed Ajwa up the mountain road. Monk Golden Lamp was nowhere to be seen, but his voice could already be heard. The girl was instantly dumbfounded. It sounded like an exorcism chant. "Great mighty dragon of heaven, revered Ksitigarbha, Daluo Dharma mantra, Prajna Buddhas, Prajnapada mantra. Flying dragon in the sky. Go." After reciting the chant, Ajwa and Ryoko saw a 3,000-foot thunder dragon scurry into the clouds from the top of the mountain. Chapter 1491. When this thunder dragon shot out of Golden Lamp Monk's palm, it stirred up all the dark clouds in the sky, twisting them together like fried dough twists. In a flash, thunder roared in the sky, accompanied by a dragon's roar. By the time Ajwa and Ryoko reached the top, the mountain top, which had been covered by dark clouds, was now a dazzling scene of sunlight shining through the clouds and fog. Monk Jindeng's palm had completely depleted the thunderclouds that had accumulated in this area. But Mount Wind Thunder had a special environment, and it was an unusual phenomenon for sunlight to shine here. The bright scene was temporary, and in less than half an hour, it would be covered by a large number of dark clouds again. Ordinary people wouldn't dare set foot in a dangerous area covered by heavenly thunder like this, and Golden Lamp Monk naturally didn't care. He could even withstand the thunder of primal chaos, to say nothing of this insignificant nature. The reason why he had chosen Mount Wind Thunder was actually because he was practicing his brand new palm technique, the Great Mighty Heavenly Dragon. It was a palm technique that could condense the power of nature and transform it into spirit power, thereby creating explosive lethality. Golden Lamp Monk had tried many ways to condense the power of nature, but in the end, he had found that natural thunder was the best for enhancing the power of his palm technique. Of course, compared with the monk's other more lethal palm techniques, the Great Mighty Heavenly Dragon was in fact a long way off. In Golden Lamp Monk's own judgment, this palm technique could only be regarded as his basic palm technique, but there was indeed a need to study it. The main thing was that Golden Lamp Monk had realized that his palm technique was too powerful. Although the persona of a holy monk with one palm was very handsome, there was a small chance that he would make a mistake when faced with a mission to capture someone alive. He had clearly wanted to capture someone alive, but in the end he had sent them away with one palm, which was very embarrassing. The Mighty Heavenly Dragon was a new spell that Monk Golden Lamp had developed based on his current situation. Apart from the fact that he could adjust its power, the more important thing was that this spell could allow the monk to capture any ghost alive on Earth with 100% certainty. You are Senior Golden Lamp. Ryoko hadn't expected that Audiobook wouldn't lie to her this time. He had smoothly led her to this legendary great senior who had developed the ghost manual. There was clearly some excitement on her face. She had wanted to kneel down in a grand salute, but the moment she bent her knees, Golden Lamp Monk helped her up. Miss, you don't have to be so polite. Tyrant smiled. His bright and clean head was reflecting light under the direct sunlight. Komiya Yoshiko was stunned. She suddenly felt that Golden Lamp Monk was much kinder than she had imagined, and he looked younger than she had imagined. Senior, do you know me? Ryoko Komiya asked. Of course, you are a child of the Jianghu family. Jin Deng said, the old master of the Jianghu family used to be my old friend, and the ghost record I gave him back then was actually the proof of our friendship. Then you must know about me, Senior? Of course. Mr. Zhuo and I are also good friends. Before he told me, I already knew that you were coming to find me. A few short words shocked Komiya Yoshiko. Monk Golden Lamp's foresight was even more amazing than she had imagined. What surprised the girl the most was that this great senior who had done their Jianghu family a favor, actually seemed to have a deep friendship with Audiobook. So now Komiya Ryoko felt that she was completely confused. She felt that the Audiobook she knew wasn't the same old liar who was widely rumored to be in the Jianghu family. This humble monk already knows the real reason why this copy of the ghost record in Miss Ryoko's hands is rioting. At that moment, the monk narrowed his eyes. Someone used the main book of the ghost record to forcibly open the escape passage of the copy and release those ghosts. Used the main book. Komiya Yoshiko frowned deeply. The main book of the ghost record had been sealed in the Jianghu family's house. In other words, the real reason why this copy of the ghost record had rioted was indeed related to someone in the Jianghu family on Sun Island. Komiya Yoshiko, but who on earth? Hearing this, the monk was silent for a while before he said indifferently, it's not time for this humble monk to reveal this matter. Because it concerns the fate of Miss Ryoko and the Jianghu family. So this humble monk can only say this much. Miss Ryoko will have to investigate the rest on her own. I understand. Thank you for your guidance, Senior. Komiya Yoshiko's pupils contracted slightly. At the same time, she had a new plan in mind. To deal with the internal affairs of the Jianghu family, she had to deal with them first. But if she returned to investigate in person now, she was bound to encounter an even more dangerous situation. So now there seemed to be only one way left. This was the plan that Komiya Yoshiko had suspended. But now it seemed that this plan was the best choice. And so, that night Komiya Yoshiko went to see someone. After deciding to use the suspended plan again, it took her several hours to make up her mind. For Komiya Yoshiko, in her short life of more than 10 years, it was the first time that she had paid a special visit like this. As the person whom Komiya Yoshiko was asking for help, even Lotus-san was surprised. Classmate Yoshiko, you? In the living room of Lotus-san's villa, all kinds of gifts from Komiya Yoshiko were placed on the floor. There were perfume, high-end cosmetics, skincare products, and many local specialties exclusive to Sun Island. I know you don't lack anything, so if you want these things, just take them. In any case, I'm putting them here, so it doesn't matter if you throw them away. Komiya Yoshiko snorted. Classmate Yoshiko, since it's a gift from classmate Yoshiko, of course I'll cherish it. Lotus-san laughed. After understanding Komiya Yoshiko's personality, she was no longer surprised by some of the girl's harsh and rude words. Because these words had to be heard in reverse. Since you've accepted my gift, does that mean you're willing to help me? Komiya Yoshiko had a hopeful look in her eyes. I have to hear what kind of help it is first. Lotus Sun smiled. If classmate Yoshiko is here for breast enhancement, there's nothing I can do. You speak as if you're very old. Komiya Yoshiko snorted. I'm older than you, classmate Yoshiko. Lotus Sun smiled. She was deliberately testing Komiya Yoshiko's sincerity. In the end, to Lotus Sun's surprise, the girl in front of her didn't get angry because of these words, and seemed to really want something from her. I didn't come to you for this. Komiya Yoshiko composed herself and looked at Lotus Sunday. After a moment of hesitation, she slowly said, I want to ask classmate Lotus Sun to pretend to be me and return to the Komiya family. Why are you asking me? Faced with such a request, Lotus Sun was surprised. At that moment, Komiya Yoshiko looked at Lotus Sun and said seriously, because only you are fit to pretend to be me, Komiya Yoshiko. Is that so? Suddenly Lotus Sun smiled. It really wasn't Senior Ajua's suggestion? In fact, just half an hour ago, Lotus Sun had received a text message from Ajua explaining Komiya Yoshiko's plan in detail. The first sentence at the beginning of the message was, Mistress, I beg you. Chapter 1492. He had Lotus Sun disguise herself as him and return to Sun Island to solve the clan's internal problems. Ryoko Kamiya really didn't have much confidence in whether Lotus Sun would agree or not. While everyone in the Jianghu family thought that she was still studying in Wuxia Nation, the fake Jianghu who was pretending to be her suddenly appearing in the family would definitely throw those people who were secretly plotting against her into chaos. And this transformation trick was something that Ryoko Kuya had thought of from the beginning. She knew that someone in her family was trying to make a move against her, so she made a plan in advance. This was a good way to lure the snake out of its hole. It was just that Komiya Ryoko didn't expect that the people in the clan would be so eager to make a move on her, so the whole plan had to be carried out ahead of schedule. According to the original plan, Ryoko intended to let Junko play herself, but unfortunately the plan couldn't keep up with the changes things had developed to this point, which was obviously not what Ryoko Komiya wanted to see. Human nature was complicated, even more complicated than the ghosts recorded in the ghost register. I see. After listening to Komiya Ryoko tell her everything she knew, Lotus Sun nodded slightly. So, classmate Ryoko, you've already noticed that there's something wrong with the female bodyguard called Kusakusa Shigeru, right? Yes. The expression on Ryoko's face was a little melancholy. But it was only after I came to Wuxia Nation that I learned the exact information. So, the plan to let Junko disguise herself as me and return to the Kyugu family to lure the snake out of its hole has to be changed. Why did she betray you? Maybe it's because he was threatened. What I know is that Junko has a sister who is not related to her by blood. Komiya Ryoko said, it should be her sister who was kidnapped. From the looks of it, it was similar to the Sixth Madam. The Sixth Madam's family was a well-known underworld family on Sun Island. But we don't have any concrete evidence yet. Do you need help? No, in fact, Junko's sister has been successfully rescued by us, Komiya Ryoko said. Since you knew there was something wrong with Miss Junko, why did you still send her to the hotel? Lotus Sun asked. Hearing this, Ryoko frowned slightly. Junko watched me grow up. She's like a sister to me. He is indeed the person I trust the most. If she really wanted to kill me, she actually had a lot of opportunities to do so, but Junko never did it. So, you still believe in her? Will the witness protection program leak out? This is the final test. Komiya Ryoko said, the other party is still hiding the fact that Junko's sister has been rescued and intends to continue to threaten Junko. Won't be discovered? We just need to use the videos that were recorded in advance. If we change the time slightly, Junko will still be kept in the dark unless we reveal the truth. One last question. At this time, Lotus Sun sighed slightly and said, according to the original plan, Junko disguised herself as you. In order to avoid suspicion, are you going to find someone to disguise as Junko? That's right, there's actually someone who can impersonate Junko. But just now, Ajwa suggested that I replace him. Substitution? Who should we replace? Senior Golden Lamp. Ajwa told me that you also know this senior. Lotus Sun. He said that Senior Golden Lamp had played the role of a woman in order to experience the sufferings of the mortal world. Also, with Senior Golden Lamp accompanying you, your safety can be guaranteed. In fact, when Kamiya Ryoko learned that the monk had been a cross-dressing big shot, her young heart had also collapsed. Senior Golden Lamp. This was one of the great seniors she respected the most in her life. Who would have thought that such a lofty and imposing image would actually be destroyed by one sentence from Ajwa? That was the whole story from beginning to end. Lotus Sun still didn't know whether Kamiya's plan would be carried out smoothly or not. But just the thought of the monk pretending to be Junko and staying by her side was a very beautiful scene. After all, Lotus Sun had Mysterious C's battle strength to back her up, so she had nothing to fear at all. But now she was more afraid of laughing out loud. At that moment, Lotus Sun couldn't help sighing with emotion in her heart. Senior Golden Lamp was too righteous. For the descendant of an old friend of the Kamiya family, he didn't hesitate to sacrifice himself to this extent. He was worthy of being the supreme Buddhist monk who had seen through the world of mortals, the strongest holy monk on earth. Such a great senior could go to this extent. So what reason did she have to refuse? In fact, Lotus Sun had already thought through the matter of agreeing to Kamiya Ryoko's request when Ajwa had sent her a text message begging her. Because overall, Kamiya Ryoko was someone who could be developed. If she could rope her in, she wouldn't have to worry about her investigating Wang Ling in the future. Helping Kamiya Ryoko would not only solve student Wang Ling's worries, it would also eliminate her own concerns about Kamiya Ryoko. This was the best of both worlds, and Lotus Sun felt that she had no reason to refuse. According to Kamiya Ryoko's plan, she would pretend to be Kamiya Ryoko, and Monk Golden Lamp would pretend to be the female bodyguard Spring Grass Chongchun. But this alone was far from enough. Because they didn't have to pretend to be Kamiya Ryoko from the beginning, they would have to act according to the circumstances after landing on the island. If they directly went to the island in disguise from the beginning, their goal would be too obvious. Thus, they needed a cover story. Ajwa had already thought of this for Kamiya Ryoko. On the night that Kamiya Ryoko visited Lotus Sun's villa. Almost at the same time, Ajwa also paid a visit to the Wang family's small villa. Wang Ling had just ushered Ajwa into the bedroom, and the moment the door closed, Ajwa instantly knelt on the ground and drifted toward Wang Ling with inertia. Then he hugged Wang Ling's thigh tightly. Shifu. Disciple, I beg you, you must go to the Sun Island exchange program. Disciple's happiness for the rest of his life is in your hands, Shifu. Wang Ling. There were 3 places in total for the Sun Island exchange program. In fact, this was Ajwa's special cover for Kamiya Ryoko's transformation plan, to proceed smoothly. Because it was essentially for investigation purposes, the exchange quota could only be decided internally this time. That was to say, as a participant in the transformation plan, the monk would be the new teacher Fire Ding, as the lead teacher for the inspection. Lotus Sun would also occupy one of the exchange quotas as a cover. Accompanying teachers didn't count, so there were still 2 places left for the exchange program. At that moment, Wang Ling rubbed his chin in thought. Even if he agreed to Ajwa's request, then who did Ajwa intend to give this extra quota to? Shifu, don't worry about the remaining quota. It's fine as long as you agree, Ajwa said. Mr. Wang Ming said he wants to go. Wang Ling was stunned. He understood the reasoning, but the problem was that Wang Ming didn't seem to be a student of number 60 high. This was a little too much. Ajwa seemed to have already considered Wang Ling's problem. Shifu, don't worry about this. Mr. Ming has previously used his identity as Wang Shower to participate in the military training exercise for the 6 schools, so his student status is actually still at number 60 high. It's just that he's on suspension. Chapter 1493. Wang Ling suddenly felt that Ajwa had become a little bolder recently, but he had indeed never seen Ajwa beg him like this for someone before. For a moment, Wang Ling felt something tugging at his heartstrings, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He felt that he should be able to understand. But every time this happened, Wang Ling felt as if his heart was being firmly gripped by a large invisible hand. That invisible hand was like a cage, crushing all of his emotions that were about to rise and fall into the turbulent but hidden undercurrent in his heart. Thus, Wang Ling often felt that he didn't understand. But it was as if Ajwa's request for Ryoko Kuya's sake could touch him, and he couldn't refuse it. Forget it, he would just treat it as a show of affection between master and disciple. Wang Ling's heart was actually very complicated, but he still found a reason to agree to Ajwa's request. giving up all his strength for the person he liked. Somehow Wang Ling felt that this scene was a little familiar. During the joint military training exercise for the 6 schools last semester, the old devil had knelt before General Yi in front of everyone for the sake of his wife. To this day Wang Ling still remembered that scene. It was as if that scene had been engraved in his mind, and he couldn't forget it. Perhaps he still needed a lot of time before he could truly understand that kind of action, but he still had a long road ahead of him. Who knew when he would be able to understand? Maybe 10 years? Maybe 20 years? Or maybe forever? Wang Ling smiled bitterly in his heart. He reached out to rub the curls on Ajua's forehead, and he felt a warm current flow between his eyebrows into his head. It was as if Wang Ling had given him strength to fill up the reservoir of the 33 paths of primordial qi inside his body. At the same time, he told Ajua some things in the hope that he would pay more attention to him while he was away from the country. Shifu, you agree? Ajua was overjoyed and excited to the point of tears. The truth was that he hadn't thought that Wang Ling would definitely agree at first. After all, his request conflicted with Shifu's passion for a peaceful life. Going abroad as an exchange student was really too eye-catching. But Ajua had in fact already thought of a remedy. This operation was a two-way exchange between number 60 High and Sun Island. Given that other schools weren't involved, Ajua could still temporarily block the news. After Ajua left, Wang Ling waited in the bedroom for that man to appear. When the remote holographic projection appeared in the bedroom, Wang Ming's smiling face appeared in front of Wang Ling. Looking at Wang Ling's expression, the young man couldn't help laughing. I really didn't follow you on purpose this time. I really do have something important to do. He looked at Wang Ling and said, do you remember the silver horn DNA we investigated previously? Teacher Guoping is now an expert in this field. Although he couldn't find any DNA comparison data in the database, he still determined that this silver horn person might be related to some aliens who illegally stayed on Earth on Sun Island. His judgment is the same as the result I got from hacking into the private database. Originally, this matter should have been handed over to Teacher Guoping, but isn't he too busy right now? Wang Ling looked at Wang Ming doubtfully. He knew this man too well. Even if he didn't read his mind, he knew that there must be another reason behind it. Alright, I admit that there aren't many opportunities to travel at public expense. I've been cooped up in the country for too long. I just want to find an opportunity to go out and have some fun. Then what about Jianghu? Wang Ling asked telepathically. You definitely won't be able to shake her off. She'll buy another plane ticket to follow us, said Wang Ming. At that moment, Loopy Toad, who had been lying on the ground in silence for a long time, lazily raised its eyelids and chuckled. I think this girl should like you. Be more confident, don't should. She just likes me, said Wang Ming. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad rolled its eyes. You already know that, but you're still hanging on to her? I'm doing this for her own good. Also, I think it's probably impossible for me and Jianghu to be together, Wang Ming sighed. I used the brain deduction technique to calculate our compatibility, but it's really too low. There's only a very small chance that we'll end up together happily. Saying this, Wang Ming raised a finger. You only have a 10% chance? Asked Loopy Toad. Wang Ming shook his head. No, 10%. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. Wang Ming's smile gradually faded. Maybe I really am not the one she's destined to be with. If Jianghu is with someone else, she might live a happier life. On the other side, news of the Sun Island student exchange program had also reached the Jiogong family. This was an internal communication between Jiogong Ryoko and the Jiogong family to release the news in advance. This was also a plan that Jiogong Ryoko and Ajua had come up with after discussion. Is number 60 High going to send 3 students over, Ryoko? The person who spoke to Jiogong Ryoko was the Jiogong family's exclusive foreign affairs liaison officer, Luminous Immortal Kazuo. This was a tall old man with silver-white hair. He had white hair and a ruddy complexion, and didn't have the slightest wrinkle on his face. Yes, Uncle Ing. I'll send you the information on the 3 people and the teacher leading them, said Jiogong Ryoko. No problem, leave it to me. Don't worry, Miss Ryoko. I'll definitely contact the best school closest to the Jiogong family, and give our distinguished guests from afar the best experience. Luminous Immortal Kazuo smiled. By the way, Miss Ryoko, won't you take this opportunity to come home for a visit? The family head, Old Master and Old Madam miss you. This sounded like a test, and Jiogong Ryoko was silent for a moment before she replied with a smile. I haven't completely established myself in Huaxiao Nation yet, so I can't come back for the time being. Please don't worry, Grandpa and Mom and Dad. Also, I should be able to find out the whereabouts of that dead fish-eyed youngster very soon. Dead fish-eyed youngster? You mean the one who was seen by the Daycrawler ghost back then? That's right. Jiogong Ryoko said, I invested heavily in Master Shochong's research institute, and I believe that he'll soon be able to develop a tool that can smoothly find that youngster. The girl on the phone stopped telling her family that she was safe, and explained her various plans. But she didn't say that she had been poisoned by the world is full of dead fish eyes drug. After the announcement, Jiogong Ryoko hung up the phone and patted her flat chest with a sigh of relief. It's finally all settled. At that moment she was still in Lotus Sun's bedroom. You're still looking for that dead fish-eyed youngster? After hearing Jiogong Ryoko's words, Lotus Sun asked, stifling a laugh in her heart. That's right. If it weren't for your drug which causes me to look at other people with dead fish eyes, I might have found him long ago. Lotus Sun, I think you shouldn't be too obsessed with this. You might not be able to find him, Jiogong Ryoko said. No. After you and classmate Wang Ling go abroad, I'll definitely find him. Lotus Sun. Chapter 1494. Lotus Sun this time. I really have to thank you. After receiving a definite answer, Jimiya Ryoko was finally a little relieved. You're welcome, classmate Jimiya. Lotus Sun smiled generously and sincerely. I know you've always regarded me as your opponent. In fact, I've always been deeply honored to be chosen as your opponent, classmate Jimiya. Hearing this, Jimiya Ryoko immediately blushed. It had to be said that Lotus Sun's psychological attack was indeed superb, and the so-called Lotus Sun domain was in fact an enhanced and passive version of this psychological attack. As the future heir to Huagua Water Curtain Group, Old Man Sun had trained Lotus Sun in a comprehensive manner since she was a child. Observing one's words and body language and observing one's heart was in fact a business tactic. After Lotus Sun confirmed that Jimiya Ryoko was different from Jiang Yingying and didn't really like Wang Ling, she had changed her strategy toward Jimiya Ryoko. From targeting her at the beginning to working together for a win-win situation now, it was all for the sake of helping Audiobook win over this beautiful girl of the plains as soon as possible. As it turned out, Lotus Sun's move was indeed very effective. Don't misunderstand, classmate Lotus Sun. This time it's just a temporary cooperation. You'll always be my opponent. Jimiya Ryoko blushed. She tried to disguise herself as super fierce, but she didn't realize that when her big eyes widened, she actually looked very silly and adorable. Classmate Ryoko, you don't have to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank Senior Audiobook. He was the one who arranged everything. I've never seen him beg anyone, said Lotus Sunday. Jimiya Ryoko crossed her arms and pursed her lips. Really? Who asked him to meddle in other people's business? Although she said that, Lotus Sun felt that it was more like a spoiled child. Also, I want to know if the two people traveling with classmate Lotus Sun are reliable. Don't worry, classmate Ryoko, they're both on the same side. One is classmate Wang Ling, whom you've already met, and the other is Wang Shower, who's suspended from school. I know classmate Wang Ling, the one with the delicate features and dead fish eyes? Ryoko Kamiya shrugged. She didn't care too much about Wang Ling because the effects of the drug hadn't worn off, and she looked at everyone with dead fish eyes. In contrast, she was actually more concerned about Wang Ming. By the way, who is this Wang Shower? What do you mean by saying that they're all on our side? Senior Audiobook didn't tell you? Lotus Sun suddenly smiled. Student Wang Ling and student Wang Xiao are actually his disciples. However, this matter has not been made public yet, so I hope that classmate Yoshiko can keep it a secret. He has a disciple. Yes. Lotus Sun said, Senior Audiobook is so awesome, of course he has to choose the right person to inherit his mantle. I see. Hearing this, Kamiya Ryoko showed an expression of sudden realization and nodded like a chick pecking at rice. By the way, does classmate Yoshiko still suspect Senior Audiobook? He's a man of genuine ability and learning, Lotus Sun asked deliberately. I just feel that it's necessary to take a look. Senior Audiobook is a good man. And in terms of age, it shouldn't be a problem for you, Lotus Sun said deliberately. I'm underage. Kamiya Ryoko emphasized. Oh, that's right, I almost forgot, classmate Yoshiko is the same age as me. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but Komiya Ryoko suddenly realized that Lotus Sun always seemed to be implying something. The girl in front of her was much scarier than she had imagined. The Sun Island exchange program had actually been proposed by the Komiya family from the very beginning, and could be considered Komiya Ryoko's plan to prevent internal strife in the family. In fact, this plan had always been in the process of being implemented, and could be activated at any time at Komiya Ryoko's command. No one had expected Komiya Ryoko to be so meticulous at such a young age, and she hadn't expected her plan to be put to use so soon, if it was possible. Komiya Ryoko hoped that she would never have to use this plan for the rest of her life. That night, Komiya Ryoko closed her eyes as she tossed and turned in bed, thinking about a lot of things. She didn't know how much time had passed before she finally fell asleep. In her dream, she found herself walking on the surface of a frozen lake. A snowstorm blocked her view. For a moment, Komiya Ryoko found that she couldn't see the road in front of her clearly. The faces under her feet were smiling at her at first, but then they suddenly turned into ghosts and leaped out of the frozen lake, turning into all kinds of ferocious forms and pouncing on her. This dream again. This wasn't the first time Komiya Ryoko had dreamed of such a nightmarish scene. She silently stood in the snowstorm, watching these ghostly faces attack her body. She let them turn into masks that were difficult to tear off, layer by layer, covering her pure white face. She didn't know when it started, but she began to find that her family had become more and more complicated. When she was young, the big, happy family that had been so warm that it could melt everything in her heart, gradually began to be overshadowed by all kinds of dark undercurrents. She didn't know when it started, but Komiya Ryoko found that her smile began to lessen. She began to learn to disguise, to fake a smile, and to put on the cold face of society to deal with all the difficulties in front of her. She seemed to have become what she hated the most. All the changes, all the helplessness, made Komiya Ryoko like a bird frightened by the mere twang of a bough. She lived carefully as if walking on thin ice, and in this doomsday scene Komiya Ryoko walked for a long time. It should be over soon. She estimated the time of this nightmare in her heart, feeling that she was about to wake up. But what the girl didn't expect was, for the first time her doomsday nightmare actually had a follow-up. At this time, just as she walked alone on the ice, enduring the impact of the snowstorm and the ghostly faces, a ray of light suddenly pierced through the scene in front of her. In an instant, the snowstorm dissipated, and there were no clouds for thousands of miles. The sun shone on the frozen lake, and those annoying ghostly faces all evaporated one by one, completely disappearing. Classmate Ryoko. The familiar voice made Komiya Ryoko instantly look in the direction of the voice. And at the end of the voice was a man standing on the riverbank, waving at her and smiling at her. At that moment, Komiya Ryoko felt as if her heart had been struck by something. Like shedding dead skin, the facial makeup on her face peeled off her cheeks layer by layer, and then turned into fine powder. Ajwa. She looked at the person in front of her in disbelief, and was about to step forward when the dream suddenly shrank. When Komiya Ryoko woke up, it was already the next morning. After waking up, the girl hugged her knees like a frightened little hedgehog, and trembled as she curled up on the bed for a long time. She had actually dreamed of Ajwa. She was crazy. Chapter 1495. On Monday the 14th of December, 2 people from number 60 High School's Grade 1 Class 3 were absent. One was Wang Ling and the other was Lotus Sunday. Among those in number 60 High School who knew that Wang Ling and Lotus Sun were about to leave the country, there were actually Gu Xuanji, Wang Zhen and the others. They were now core members of Battle Sect, so they could still find out. According to Teacher Pan's official explanation, Wang Ling and Lotus Sun were sick, so they needed to rest at home for a while. If it was anyone else who disappeared, there probably wouldn't be too many people paying attention. But when these two disappeared together, people's imaginations ran wild. Sick together? And applying to rest at home at the same time? The rest of the class might believe this, but Super Chin and Hirogwa didn't believe it so easily. No way, it really happened? The two buffoons looked at each other with marvelous expressions on their faces. On the ancient street of cultivation culture, they had slipped away in advance and deliberately left some space for themselves. They had thought that they would make some progress, but who would have thought that it would be so fast? In just 2 days they were already in the hospital. Abortion. They immediately thought of a scene that often appeared in TV dramas. Hirogwa, Li Yuiwei and Super Chen had set up the Ling Rong Assist discussion group. They were discussing the situation enthusiastically. You guys are too dirty. What are you thinking? Who says that going to the hospital has to be an abortion? Besides, how can it be so fast? Liu said crossly. Then if it's not an abortion, is it possible that Wang Ling couldn't restrain himself and wanted to be a beast for once, and then someone found out and broke his leg? Even Hirogwa himself didn't quite believe it when he said this. The probability of this indifferent piece of wood becoming a beast was almost zero. If he had, he would have done it long ago. Back at the Shao family compound they had plenty of opportunities to be alone. I don't think Ling Zi is the kind of man who would do that kind of thing. At that moment, Super Chin suddenly typed, but the two of them disappearing at the same time and taking sick leave is indeed a little interesting. I think there's more to it than meets the eye, said Liu. The main reason was that the three of them had sent private messages to Wang Ling or Lotus Sun asking about the situation, but hadn't received any replies. This situation was indeed a little inconceivable. However, they knew Old Pan very well. As a meticulous gold medal teacher, Old Pan basically wouldn't help others lie to them. From the looks of it, someone more senior than Old Pan must have planned and organized something, and then called Wang Ling and Lotus Sun out. Could it be studying abroad? At that moment, Super Chin suddenly said, I remember that when foreign students came to our school in the past, there seemed to be a student exchange program. Isn't there going to be a new student in our class this time? It's possible. When Hirogwa and Liu saw Super Chin's words, they immediately nodded like chicks pecking at rice. So you're saying, they're actually on a honeymoon abroad? Liu's mouth twitched. At that moment, Hirogwa couldn't help laughing. Honeymoon is an exaggeration. Can you call it a honeymoon when it comes to cultured people? That's called learning. Liu said, yes. Study. Super Chin chimed in. After some discussion, Super Chin and the others seemed to have an answer. They were Wang Ling's best brothers, and even if they knew something, they would only rot in their stomachs and wouldn't say a word. However, Super Chin and the others weren't the only ones who had doubts about this matter. On this day, Jiang Yingying wasn't in a good mood either. She looked anxiously at Wang Ling and Lotus Sun's empty seats, and felt that something was up. When school was almost over, Jiang Yingying used the same trick again and blocked Super Chin and Hirogwa at the school gate. Classmate Jiang, please let me go, I really don't know where Lingzi is. Hirogwa raised his hands in surrender, while Super Chin loyally stepped forward and shielded little Fatty Gua behind him. I know that you have a good impression of Lingzi, but there are times when you really can't force things. As Wang Ling's best brother, your behavior isn't just troubling for us, it's also troubling for classmate Wang Ling. Super Chin spoke very seriously, and Jiang Yingying stared blankly at him. The girl lowered her head, her face flushed red. She was probably embarrassed and was reflecting on herself. Seeing Jiang Yingying's nose twitch as if tears were going to fall in the next second, Super Chin hurriedly relaxed his tone and said as gently as he could, actually, classmate Jiang Yingying, I've always wanted to ask, do you really like classmate Wang Ling? Jiang Yingying's mind instantly blanked at these words. No, what I want to ask is, do you like Lingzi's literary talent, or do you like him? Super Chin smiled. Although I've been single for a long time, I more or less know a little about relationships. At our age, it's actually very easy to mistake good feelings, friendship, worship and the like for like. You just read one of Lingzi's essays and said you like him, so I think classmate Jiang Yingying should consider this carefully. Jiang Yingying was instantly speechless, and for a moment she actually didn't know how to refute Super Chen's words. It's fine, classmate Jiang, you don't have to answer me now. My questions are only because I am your son's brother, and I am asking you some questions. They're just some immature little questions, said Super Chin. Actually, Super Chin himself didn't know why, but his mouth seemed to be getting better and better at talking. Especially since the beginning of this semester, it seemed that his ability to organize his words had been strengthened. To be more precise, it should be after the math class with the new vice principal, teacher Hu Ding, had started, Jiang Yingying was powerless to answer the series of questions. She stopped asking about Wang Ling's situation, and with a slightly dazed expression on her face, she walked to the bus station. Aren't you going too far? Super Chin frowned and was a little worried. Let's follow behind and send classmate Jiang Yingying back first. Her condition is indeed worrying, said Hirogwa. Just like that, the two of them discussed and secretly followed Jiang Yingying. At that moment, Wang Ling and Lotus Sun were going through the relevant procedures to go abroad at the same place. Because he had to be present in person, Wang Ling had no choice but to participate in this matter himself. Actually, this wasn't Wang Ling's first time going abroad. The main thing was that it was his first time going abroad according to the official procedures. Because he had habitually used teleportation before, theoretically speaking, Wang Ling had already entered other countries illegally several times. Furthermore, he had repeatedly jumped around and no one could do anything to him. Wuxia Cultivation Entry-Exit Administration. At that moment, Wang Ling, who was taking a passport photo, ran into a new problem. Classmate Wang Ling, can you smile for a bit? The female police officer who was taking the passport photo raised her SLR camera and looked at Wang Ling as she asked. Wang Ling grinned. The female police officer didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why do you smile like you're crying? Wang Ling, female police officer, come copy me, isn't Kuxuan handsome? Wang Ling, female police officer, don't keep silent, just copy me. I'll take the photo. Wang Ling, but I can't lie, female police officer. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.